This is Kang Jin-hyuk, the guy who spent years as a complete nobody at rank D, getting beaten up by every hunter around, just to suddenly show up as a rank S. That left everyone speechless because all dungeons are controlled by the big guilds, and nobody had ever seen him in any of them. So when people saw him taking down high-level monsters left and right, the top hunters were completely shocked. They even tried to stop him, but the guy had reached a level where nobody can even touch him. Even this sexy huntress thought he was totally useless, and had to see it with her own eyes, watching Jin-hyuk kill a monster before she believed in his strength. She tried to take him on, but the only place she was ever going to pin him down was in bed. Fuck! The truth is, one day while Jin-hyuk was out working, he stumbled across a dungeon and saw his chance to level up. When he went after the goblins, a group of pro hunters showed up and beat him out of there. Once again, the powerful guilds were stealing yet another dungeon. Heading home frustrated from never getting to hunt, he finds something that's about to change his life, a private dungeon portal inside his own attic. Seeing the goblins in there, the protagonist gets excited because he can finally level up. He grabs his staff and charges in. He beats down every goblin that comes his way, and levels up incredibly fast. A few hours later, he stopped to drink some water, and checked how many goblins he had already collected. Looking at his inventory, he saw there was only room for one more. So he went after the biggest goblin he could find and smashed it over the head. When he saw the helmet fly off, he realized it wasn't a goblin at all, but an old dwarf. The old man started speaking in an ancient language that the protagonist couldn't understand at all. So the dwarf gave him a necklace that translated everything instantly. The moment the protagonist put the necklace on, the old man started calling him every name in the book, and told the guy he was a piece of crap. The old man's rage only cooled down when he grabbed the boy's staff and came face to face with the material. He said the incredibly rare item was called orichalcum, but to the boy's eyes it was just an aluminum tube. The dwarf took the weapon to his workshop anyway, and came back with it, enchanted with S-rank durability. The kid was shocked because he had no idea he'd been carrying a legendary weapon, and that it just needed some traits equipped. The dwarf said it was a gift, and wanted nothing in return. With the weapon sorted out, the next step was selling the monster drops, without drawing attention from the giant guilds. The solution was to hit up the black market, where the boss Lee Jun-chul's jaw dropped when Jin-hyuk dumped on the floor 20 goblin bodies in perfect condition. The conversation got cut short when two orcs appeared out of nowhere, drawn in by the fresh bodies. The monsters were way above the level Jin-hyuk thought he could handle, but the enchanted staff sensed the danger on its own, and blocked the first orc's axe before the thing could finish off its owner. Not even the MC himself knew the staff had that ability. The boy grabbed the staff and with just one hit already put the orc to sleep. Even though the monster was way stronger than him, he got an even bigger shock when his level jumped from 24 to 36. Right after that, he already crushed the other orc, and leveled straight from 36 to 48. That's when it finally hit him, just how powerful his new weapon really was. Business went back to normal, and he sold the goblins and the two orcs at 15% above market price, and even locked in a partnership with the black market. He heads home feeling pretty proud. The dealer likely figured out Jin-hyuk isn't some weak thief moving stolen bodies. He's a hunter strong enough to kill two orcs without much trouble. But even with the bat and his new strength, his gear still isn't good enough for stronger monsters. So there's only one real way to upgrade, and if he handles it well, he might get new equipment for free. The next day, he brings the dwarf a whole crate of beer cans and alcohol. Since the guy loves aluminum, it's basically treasure to him. The dwarf is shocked that every can is packed with what he calls auricalobe. He tries the beer and instantly spits it out. It tastes awful. To stop another rant, Jin-hyuk hands him some soju instead. This one gets a different reaction, and the dwarf finally seems pleased, at least for now. Still, he says it's missing something. Since the chance is there, the dwarf asks Jin-hyuk for a favor. He wants something mined for him. He gives him a quest to bring back mithril ore. What that has to do with alcohol is anyone's guess, but Jin-hyuk wants free gear, so he doesn't exactly get to complain. If this is the price for better equipment, he'll do it. He goes deeper into the labyrinth and reaches a forest clearing. The place is way bigger than he expected. Then a system message tells him he's reached the labyrinth's second floor. It gives him the chance to save the spot as a warp point. He has no clue what that means, but he accepts anyway. A gate opens up in front of him. It's a portal that lets him move between the first and second floors, basically like a game fast travel point. After setting it up, he heads deeper in to find the mithril ore. The second floor is called Dogs and Skeletons, and like the goblin floor, it's packed with monster dogs attacking him. Compared to the orcs, these things are much weaker. So to him they're basically free experience. He raises his bat and charges straight into the pack coming at him. By the end, he's killed 25 dogs and stored the corpses. At market price, that haul should bring in around 200 million won. Still, he can't get distracted by the money. He came here to mine mithril ore. As he goes farther in, skeletons start swarming him. This is the Dogs and Skeletons floor, after all, and skeletons are a pain to fight. Their bodies aren't worth anything, and to kill them he has to break their cores. That makes the whole fight even more annoying, especially because so many keep coming. Even so, with his current level and skills, there's no way he loses. When it's over, he's worn out, and figures the dwarf probably sent him here because he didn't want to deal with these monsters himself. Still, there is one big upside. All those kills push him to level 100, which means it's time for a class change. The system picks it based on everything he's done so far. After all the fighting, he expects something like a berserker or warrior. Instead, the system gives him cleric. He keeps going and eventually collects the mithril ore the dwarf asked for. That's a surprise, since the dwarf clearly didn't think Jinhyuk would make it back alive. He does make it back, but completely exhausted from all the fighting. Still, he didn't leave empty-handed. He secretly kept some mithril for himself because it looked valuable, then handed the rest over to the dwarf. Since he completed the job, the dwarf agrees to use some of the ore to craft whatever he wants. He already has a strong weapon, so what he needs now is armor, something light, easy to hide, and tough enough to take heavy hits. The dwarf agrees and starts right away. The work takes longer than Jinhyuk wants to wait, so he heads home and sleeps for a few hours. He wakes up later and returns to the workshop. By then the armor is finished, and the dwarf looks pleased with it. It's mithril chainmail, thin enough to wear under his shirt and hoodie. He puts it on, and the dwarf suddenly smacks him in the chest with a hammer to test it. That hit should have broken his ribs, but with the armor, he barely feels a thing. Combined with his legendary bat, his fighting power jumps like crazy. Meeting this dwarf really was the break he needed. But the dwarf isn't done yet. Next he rolls over a big barrel for him. It's the soju Jinhyuk brought before. Jinhyuk returns to his apartment, and tries some himself. The dwarf was right. Just aging the soju in a mithril barrel turned it into something completely different, and that gives him an idea. He calls the black market dealer and offers another deal. This time, he's selling kobold corpses, along with high-quality liquor. Elsewhere, the Titan Guild has just wrapped up training near some newly opened gates. They should be finished, but suddenly a fresh wave of lizardmen pours out. It's an anomaly gate, and this time the number is triple what they just fought. One member suggests asking another guild for help, but Deputy Guildmaster Andoyan is too proud for that. He orders everyone to hold the line and keep fighting. Meanwhile, Jinhyuk is doing much better. He officially became a cleric, and he also got promoted from D rank to C rank. Clerics are rare healers, and top guilds are always looking for them. That means he finally has a shot at getting recruited. Then a battered hunter bursts through the doors, desperately asking for a cleric. Jinhyuk raises his hand to volunteer, and the man brings him straight to the battlefield, where the Titan Guild is being overwhelmed by lizardmen. They put him in the back line with the other clerics, and tell him to heal as many people as he can. He wants to do more, but they insist healing is enough, and promise he'll be paid after the fight. The cleric's support is enough to keep the guild going, and help them push on for a bit, but the waves are still too much. Another cleric says they need backup fast or everyone will die. While Jinhyuk is thinking it over, he senses killing intent behind him. His bat blocks a deadly strike from a lizard man that somehow slipped past the front lines to target the healers first. That means their rear line has been broken. There are only clerics in the back. If the monsters break through here, the whole defense will collapse. With no other choice, Jinhyuk grabs his bat and blasts the lizard man away in one swing. He quickly warns the other clerics that enemies got through, and he's the only one who can stop them. The lizard men use some kind of concealment skill to sneak around and attack from behind. Jinhyuk tells the clerics to keep healing and leave the monsters to him. It won't be easy, but nobody else can handle it. The other clerics stare at him in shock. They still think he's just a normal healer. Jinhyuk charges in and tells the clerics not to worry. If he was stepping up like this, he clearly believed he could handle it. Even so, he was still scared, but somehow, he held the line against the crazed lizardmen. Then one slips past him and rushes a nearby cleric. Jinhyuk sprints after it. He jumps in at the last second and stops the attack before it lands. That desperate move leaves his back wide open. Still, the dwarf-made chain armor keeps the stab from doing real damage. The lizard man freezes in shock, and Jinhyuk smashes its face with his bat. Somehow, he's really blocking them all by himself. Because of him, the clerics can keep healing without fearing another ambush. And then things get even better. The lizard men suddenly stop as someone new steps in. A powerful fighter joins the battle and drops one monster in a single blow. It's Seo Sangho, the Titan Guild's guildmaster. He looks at Jinhyuk and asks if he's the one who cleared out the monsters back here. Jinhyuk admits it, but he's more puzzled by who this man is. The clerics can't believe he doesn't recognize the S-rank hunter Sangho. With Sangho here, it already feels like the battle is over. He rushes off to help his team, but not before promising Jinhyuk a proper reward. One look is enough for Jinhyuk to understand. FEC-rank hunters are on a whole different level. Once Sangho joins the fight, he becomes the most dangerous thing on the field. He drops straight into the center of the battle. That alone lifts everyone's morale. Everyone's except the deputy, who looks annoyed that the guildmaster came. His pride won't let him accept the help. Sangho ignores that, takes command right away, and starts giving orders the others instantly follow. Without waiting, he slams the ground with a heavy attack. The impact sends a shockwave through the area, and blasts the lizard men away. That one hit wipes out a huge chunk of them, and with Sang-ho leading, the rest are finished off within minutes. Once his people are safe, Sang-ho grabs the deputy by the jacket and demands to know why he risked everyone's lives fighting alone. The deputy says he only wanted to protect the guild's name, but Sang-ho sees through it. He was really protecting his own ego. The two lock eyes for a moment. Then a guild member reminds Sang-ho that the clerics still need to be dismissed. He reins himself in, then goes over to thank the hunters himself. Most of all, he thanks Jin-yuk, since he's the main reason so many people survived. To show his gratitude, Sang-ho offers to let him join the guild on the spot, without any registration. The deputy can't stand that. He cuts in and belittles Jin-yuk as a lucky C rank, who used to be D rank. Tian-tu shuts him down fast, reminding him that this mere former D rank saved lives that would have been lost because of his stubborn pride. Then he makes the deputy apologize to Jin-yuk. That alone is a huge hit to the deputy's pride. Even then, Jin-yuk politely turns the offer down. He doesn't want to join a guild where someone like the deputy holds power, and that finally pushes the man over the edge. The deputy lunges at him with an enhanced punch. Jin-yuk answers with a quick bat strike to the stomach, dropping him cold on the spot. The whole thing is such a big deal that it shows up in the news the next day. Titan Guild's higher-ups are furious. Not only was the deputy humiliated by a mere C rank in public, he also got stripped of his position. They demand that the C rank come before them and explain himself. Sang-ho wants no part of that. He points out that the deputy endangered guild members for his pride, then tried to attack someone who had just helped their guild. That's more than enough reason to demote him, and that shuts the room up. With nothing left to discuss, Sang-ho dismisses them. His thoughts drift back to that unusual C rank. Before Kang Jin-yuk gets any stronger, Sang-ho wants him in the guild, no matter what. Meanwhile, Jin-yuk is back in his apartment, relaxing with a drink while checking his spending. He made good money from hunting, but he also spent way more than usual, and now the total looks ridiculous. If he'd known that would happen, he might have taken the extra pay Titan offered. Still, it doesn't really matter, because he has a better way to make money. After a decent break, he heads back into the dungeon to gather more monster corpses. The usual monsters aren't enough anymore. Now that he's stronger, he wants tougher enemies. He goes deeper into the second floor, and ends up facing a group of orcs. One tries to jump him from behind, but Jin-yuk dodges and strikes back right away. That single blow kills the orc instantly, just as several more rush him in the hallway. A few days ago, this would have killed him for sure. Now with his new gear he cuts through them easily. When it's over he counts 20 orc corpses, enough money to live without worry for a full year. Since he's still got plenty of energy left, he decides to go even deeper. That leads him to the third floor, the Temple Guardian's labyrinth. At first it seems empty, then the calm breaks with a violent tremor. A giant hand bursts from the ground under him, and Jin-yuk barely gets away in time. The hand belongs to a stone golem, an artificial monster made from mana. Its attacks are too quick for him to avoid cleanly, and even when he blocks, the sheer force still sends him sliding back, so he has no choice but to fight back as best he can. The golem is incredibly strong, but not very smart. Jin-yuk uses that opening and lands a hit on its head, smashing it apart and dropping the creature. But almost right away it starts rebuilding itself. Jin-yuk then remembers the key thing about golems: you have to destroy the core to kill them. Realizing that, he tries to jump back and make space to think, but the golem regenerates fast enough to grab him before he can escape, leaving him with almost no way out. Then an arrow suddenly shoots in and hits the golem in the chest. Jin-yuk takes the chance and drives his bat forward to break the core and finish the golem for good. He only survives because a stranger saved him with that arrow. He turns to thank them, expecting the dwarf, but instead finds a woman with strange ears. Those ears tell him she's an elf. Jin-yuk bows to thank her, not noticing her rush in while his head is lowered. He barely has time to look up before she grabs him by the collar and pulls him close, demanding answers. She hasn't seen him in this dungeon before, and wants to know who he is and where he came from. It's clear this elf isn't from Jin-yuk's world. She doesn't recognize where he's from, and his clothes mean nothing to her. She keeps firing questions at him while he tries to pry her hand off. She finally lets go when he says he entered the dungeon today. That means he knows where the entrance is. She shoves him down and even drops her bow in excitement. At last she's found a way out. Jin-yuk gets back up and demands to know why she's acting so aggressive. She ignores that and orders him to take her to the exit. He's not thrilled about being bossed around by a stranger. She is really pretty though, so he lets it pass for now. She says that if he guides her out, he'll see she can be trusted. Her name is Lucia, a half-elf who's apparently pretty famous. She assumes he's heard of her, but Jin-yuk has no idea who she is, so she repeats that she's a platinum-ranked mercenary, and shows him her badge. Even then, he's never seen anything like it. Now Lucia is the confused one. Did he come from the middle of nowhere? How does he not know her or the badge? He tells her he's from Seoul, Korea. That only confuses her more, until she realizes that Crazy Mage may really have succeeded with a dimension-jumping spell. She shares her guess with him. In simple terms, a mage from her world cast a spell on this dungeon and made it shift into his world. It sounds impossible, but that seems to be what happened. And if the dungeon was moved by dimensional magic, then undoing that magic should send her back home. Jinyuk knew something was off, and now he finds out this dungeon isn't even from his world. If it gets sent back, that could be bad news for him. He asks if she plans to return it now, but Lucia says no. Reversing the spell here would be too hard, though there is one place that might help. It's a secret room on this floor she found earlier, while looking for a way out. She asks him to help her get there, and promises a reward if he does. That sounds fair enough, so he agrees. The two move out, cutting through a few orcs on the way. Jinyu can tell she's strong, so for now, the safest move is to work with her and figure things out as he goes. After walking a bit longer, they stop to rest in a safe area. Jinyuk had brought some emergency chocolates in his pocket, so he gives her one. She loves it right away and asks for more, then wipes out his whole stash. After that, she still wants another one. Too bad that was the last piece. Even so, she seems happy enough to keep going. Before long, they arrive at the dungeon boss room. Lucia thinks the mage's spell might be connected to this place, but first they need to clear out the boss. She tells him not to worry too much. Once she knocks it down, he just has to help finish it off. They open the door, and the monster roars at them before charging in. Lucia powers up an arrow and aims at the boss's chest, telling Jinyuk to watch closely. Then she uses a technique called aura to make the shot hit even harder. She lets the arrow fly, and it slams straight into the boss. The huge armored monster is knocked onto its back in one shot. That's the technique she wants to teach him. But first, he has to finish the monster before it stands up. Just like the golems, he needs to break its core. Jinyuk jumps onto its chest and smashes his bat, where he thinks the core is, but one hit isn't enough. A giant fist swings at him from the side, and he barely blocks it with Holy Shield. Then he uses that push to get back on its chest. If one strike won't do it, he'll just keep swinging. At last, the core shatters, and the monster goes down for good. He levels up again, getting close to level 200. Once it's over, he asks Lucia to teach him aura, but she says he already used it. His Holy Shield turned his holy power into aura. He just thought it was a normal class skill. She has no idea what a class skill is. Still, if he can already do that, he may learn aura much faster than she expected. In fact, he might be able to start using aura to boost his attacks right away. But first, she gives him a condition. Go back and bring her more chocolates. Back in the city, Songho walks with his secretary Heintia and talks about a new anomaly near Gangnam Station. It showed up yesterday, so they've got about 5 days before a powerful monster appears. However, Songho looks at it. His guild can't handle that alone. The problem is, the other major guilds are all overseas, so Titan Guild is the only one left in Korea to fight. Heintia will keep looking for freelance hunters nearby, but none of them seem dependable. Songho, though, already has someone in mind. And by pure chance, that person is walking on the other side of the street. He cuts off the talk with Hyena and hurries after Jinyuk. Jinyuk is on his way back with a big box of snacks the elf asked for when Songho calls out to him. He offers once again to bring him into Titan Guild, but Jinyuk still says no. So Songho changes tactics and offers him work as a mercenary instead. That way he can help the guild without joining it, and the pay is very good. That gets Jinyuk's attention, but he only says he'll think about it. After that, he heads back into the dungeon and gives Lucia the snacks. She tears through all of them, clearly amazed by food like this. Once she's full, Jinyuk asks why she's still staying underground when the boss is already dead. She points to a magic circle on the ceiling and says it links the dungeon to his world. Because of that, she plans to stay there for now and study it. So if he wants to learn more about aura, he's going to have to keep bringing chocolates. With eating done, she grabs his hand and starts teaching him aura. First, she'll pour some of her aura into his body so he can feel it for himself. Jinyuk instantly senses that power moving through him. Lucia feels the surge too. He has even more talent than she thought, and the way his holy power moves through his body is so good she thinks he can learn the basics before the day ends. She praises him and asks if he remembers the flow of aura inside him. He says yes, and she nods, before turning to leave the room. She was supposed to study the magic circle first, but training him fully looks like the faster option. And the best way to do that is real combat. She takes him to another part of the dungeon, then throws him into a horde of monsters. He battles goblins and kobolds all at once, and still manages to handle them while collecting the corpses too. Junkao asks why he suddenly has to fight a mob, when she said she'd teach him aura. Lucia says this is the lesson. She only gave him a small taste of the power, so now he has to learn the rest himself by using his holy power to trigger aura. And there's no better way to learn that than in a real fight. What annoys him most is that she never warned him. She just tossed him into battle. Then the ground shakes, and a stone golem rises up. It roars and knocks Jinyuk back, as Lucia calmly explains that a real crisis is what brings out his true potential. She tells him to focus on the holy power in the shield his skill creates. Since that shield is made of aura, once he understands it, the rest should come fast. The problem is Holy Shield activates on its own, so he has no idea how he's supposed to sense something he never turns on by choice. The golem slams another huge fist at him, and he blocks with Holy Shield again, but this time he feels it. Energy gathers around his left hand, the one using the skill. So this is what holy power feels like. The monster pulls back and attacks again, and Jin-Yuk brings out Holy Shield once more. But now it forms differently than before, and even the feeling is new. This must be mana. He barely gets time to think before the golem smashes into the shield and sends him flying. Lucia mocks him from above. She told him to understand the skill, not make dumb mistakes. He grumbles that he was just following her instructions, but as he gets ready again, a status window pops up. He's gained a new skill, Holy Power Application. It lets him use Holy Power to boost attack and defense, depending on how much he uses. So skills can be earned in ways besides changing jobs. Seeing him freeze up, Lucia decides to step in. Learning aura while fighting a golem may have been too much, so she offers to finish it herself. But Jin-Yu quickly snaps back and tells her to stay out of it. Now that he understands his new power, he can handle this. He rushes the golem, then jumps and barely avoids another stone fist aimed at him. In midair, he pours mana into his bat and flips forward for extra force, before smashing the powered-up bat into the golem's head. The monster drops, but he's not done. He lands on its chest and focuses again, forcing even more mana into the bat before slamming it into the golem's chest. At that moment, he unlocks another skill, Holy Aura. With his strengthened weapon, he drives the bat in and breaks the golem's core. Unlocking Holy Aura also gives him new skills like Precision Strike and Unyielding. Thanks to Lucia's training, he gains 2 passive skills and 1 active skill. What shocks Lucia more is how fast he learned Aura in the middle of battle. She only meant to teach him the basics, but now she feels like she has to see this through. She grabs one of her arrows and blasts open a wall, revealing an even bigger swarm of monsters. Jin-Hyuk is not thrilled, but he raises his bat and gets ready to fight again. The non-stop battles in the dungeon wear him down hard, and by the time he goes to sell the monster corpses, he's completely exhausted. He's so worn out that when he meets black market boss Jun Chul, the guy can tell right away. Zhang looks like he just came back from a war, so Zhang Chul doesn't pry. He takes the monster corpses and brings up the liquor from last time. He had sold it as handmade old-style soju, and ever since it hit the market, orders have poured in. At this rate, he could just sell booze and never worry about cash again. With enough money to live on, and a small business already running, Zhang Bao heads home to sleep. Lucia's training drained him so badly that the second he hits the bed, he's out. Not long later, a disaster alert jerks him awake. A loud system message tells everyone outside to evacuate. It's already Monster Invasion Day, and this month it came early. Most invasions are random, but one type always shows up about once a month. It's a common one, and Jin-Yuk usually uses it to hunt weak monsters for easy money. This time, he's too exhausted to bother. The big guilds should handle it. That was his plan, until his phone buzzed with a notice saying the emergency bounty rewards would be tripled. Once he sees that, Jin-Yuk can't sit this one out. He heads outside to pick off a few monsters and cash in. At the same time, security teams try to clear the streets while the Titan Guild fights off waves of monsters across the city. Their defensive line is already starting to crack under the pressure, and Songo is running low on stamina. No matter how many monsters he drops, more keep coming. The guild is nearing its limit, and even if they seem in control, the fight is going badly. Watching from behind the lines, the guild secretary can tell they're being pushed too hard, even with the guildmaster holding things together. One more strong hunter could change everything. That makes her think of someone Sang-hae had his eye on recently. So she pulls out her phone and calls Jin-Yuk. He answers while fighting goblins. She offers him a spot beside the Titan Guild with big pay if he helps. He immediately asks for 5 times the normal rate, and she tells him to meet her so they can talk in person. When they do, she counters with 4 times instead, and after a little hesitation he accepts. Then she hands him a device that counts his kills so they can measure his contribution. If he performs above average, he'll get the full amount he asked for. With that, Jin-Yuk heads straight for the battlefield, ready to prove himself and get paid right. Hyena watches him go and wonders if he can really meet Sang-ho's expectations. He beat Endoian once, but that may have been pure luck. The moment he arrives, he charges a raging ogre, leaving everyone stunned. He drops it in a single strike, making the others think he has to be at least A rank. A rank sounds close, but Jin-Yuk figures he's already stronger than that. He takes a mana potion to refill his energy, and thanks to Lucia's brutal training, he's reached level 200. Normally an ogre would be too much, but as long as he has mana, he can keep up with an S-rank hunter. And right now he's carrying over 1,500 mana potions, which means every monster here looks like walking cash. Elsewhere, Ondoian is fighting with his guild when he notices the monster count suddenly dropping fast. He looks over, sees hunters staring at someone mowing monsters down with ease, and when he checks for himself, he finds the one person he least wanted to see. He snaps at the stunned hunters, ordering them to stop gawking and get back to work. Why was this guy here, and who brought him? Just seeing Jin-Yuk brings back the memory of his humiliation being aired all over the news. He convinces himself that last time was just dumb luck. Now Jin-Yuk is alone, so Ondoian figures this is the perfect time to put him in his place. Thinking that, he rushes in to attack, but Jin-Yuk spots him too soon. counters instantly and sends Ondoyen flying before knocking him out again. He doesn't have time to deal with some lunatic. Meanwhile, Songho faces a wild minotaur with almost no mana and no stamina left. The monster lifts its club, and Sangho actually considers backing off to recover. Then a voice calls from behind him, and Jinyuk drops in from above, grabs the minotaur by the horn and smashes it into the ground. A C-rank hunter killing a minotaur in one blow. That tells Sangho his read on Jinyuk was dead on. After the monster falls, Sangho walks over to thank him for the save. Jinyuk brushes it off, saying the guild secretary promised him good money, so no thanks are needed. Sangho uses the chance to ask again if he'll join the guild. If he does, chances like this will keep coming. Jinyuk thinks it over, then says he'll consider it, after they finish off the rest of the monsters. While they're talking, Sangho gets a call from Hyena. She tells him to look up. The sky has turned violent, with fire and lightning swirling around something massive hiding in the clouds. It starts firing lightning at everything. Hunters, monsters, even buildings. It's flying too high for their skills to reach, which means they can't hit it at all. Sangho decides they need to regroup at the guild and figure this out, and he asks Jinyuk to come. He agrees, and they head back to the office together. There they test every option they can think of, but nothing works. Not against the monster, and not against its attacks. Everything they try gets blocked or destroyed. What they need is overwhelming long-range firepower. Right away, Lucia comes to his mind, and Jinyuk realizes they may still have a way to bring it down. As he leaves to get Lucia, Titan Guild executives gather and complain that Sangho is showing way too much trust in a C-ranker. They search for another answer, but every other plan is sure to fail. In the end, the only option is trusting the one hunter who actually has an idea. They could also call in the Gaidia Guild, a major group packed with A-rank and higher mages, but those people don't care about casualties, so bringing them in would almost certainly cost many lives. After that, the room goes quiet. They really can do nothing but wait. Back at the apartment, Jinyuk returns through the portal with Lucia. He thanks her for helping, and promises all the sweets from his world she wants. Then they head to the top of the Titan Guild headquarters, where he points out the monster attacking the city. When he asks if she can hit it, Lucia is completely sure it's so huge she says she could do it with her eyes closed. The creature is level 300, the highest level monster ever recorded. Lucia says she can kill it, but first she needs a little help. The rooftop can't handle the force of her attack, so she tells him to put up a shield unless he wants several buildings wrecked by the impact. Once everything is ready, Jinyuk asks the guild leader about possible damage. Bringing the monster down will hit nearby buildings no matter what, but Sangho tells him to forget that and focus on killing it. With that settled, Jinyuk raises a shield while Lucia charges 2 arrows. She takes aim and fires, and the shockwave is so huge it shoves Jinyuk back even through the shield. The arrows streak through the sky, and a moment later, they hit dead on, killing the beast instantly. The blast is so strong that half its body gets erased. From below, the Titan Guild can only stare in shock at how easily he pulled this off. Kang Jinhyu keeps amazing everyone. Lucia's shot was so strong it left smoking marks across the helipad. Maybe this wasn't the time to hold back, but even so, that was excessive. Lucia, though, is only disappointed the monster was that weak. Really, it's not that the monster was pathetic, she's just far too strong for this world's monsters. Either way, the job is done, and it's time for her to go back. She hands him the point tracker, and the total reads an incredible 240 points. Before leaving, she warns him not to trust other people too easily. When money is involved, people stop thinking clearly. She tells him not to let himself get fooled the way she was during her own adventures. Jinyuk tells Lucia he'll be fine, and says he'll handle it if anything feels off. Then they split up. After that, Jinyuk heads down to the street, where Sangho and his secretary meet him. They ask how he brought down a monster that huge on his own, but Jinyuk only smiles and says it's a secret. One executive gets annoyed and refuses to believe a C-rank hunter could kill something like that. Jinyuk answers by showing the monster tracker. The huge point total proves the kill was his. Sangho quickly cuts in and apologizes for the executive's behavior. The executive can only glare in silence. In his mind, Sangho cares more about some SAG-rank than his own people. If that keeps happening, maybe Sangho needs to be replaced for the guild's sake. With that thought, he pulls out his phone and calls an unknown number. By the next day, the whole city is talking about a normal C-rank hunter taking down the giant monster. Titan Guild members doubt it, but the truth is easy to check. People are even saying Sangho offered Jinyuk a direct spot in Titan Guild, and Jinyuk turned him down. Rejecting an offer like that means he must be very sure of himself. The rumors also reached the All-Round Guild, along with news that Endoyun ended up in the hospital during the invasion. Endoyun was known as a strong hunter, so hearing he got beaten by that rumored C-rank makes the story sound a lot more real. Because of that, all-round scouts decide to meet Jinyuk and check for themselves. Maybe he unlocked a hidden class, something very rare among hunters. If so, they need to recruit him before another guild does, or get rid of him. Meanwhile, Jinyuk sleeps like a rock after the battle. He burned through all his stamina and passed out the moment he could rest. When he finally wakes up 2 days later, he realizes this is the backlash from pushing himself too hard. He steps out into the living room, and sees Lucia has trashed the place with piles of snack wrappers. She finished everything in 2 days. Since the fridge was empty, snacks were all she had to eat. She also says she couldn't return to the dungeon because he never opened the portal. That throws Jin-Yuk off, since as far as he knows it's always open, so he takes her up to the attic to prove the portal is open right now. Lucia is confused because a second ago, there was nothing there. She tells him to move away from the door, then opens it again, and now the portal is gone. Jin-Yuk has no clue what's happening. He's only ever known the dungeon to stay open. Lucia guesses the dungeon only reacts to him, like it follows him wherever he goes. It may have bonded to him directly, which means it could have dropped right on top of him. Luckily the spell failed. Juhaik decides he'd rather not think about that. Instead he orders food for both of them. Lucia then asks how he even found his way home after the fight. She had put a spell on the place that should have made it impossible to recognize. Juhaik asks why she'd cast something like that on his house, and she explains that while he was asleep, weird people kept showing up. They were from guilds called Alron and Guardian, and they were so annoying that she made sure they couldn't come back. Now confused about why top guilds want him, Juhaik grabs his phone to see what happened while he was out. The first headline says it all. News of him defeating the giant monster is all over the internet. There's even a video showing him fighting with the Titan Guild. Overnight, Juhaik became famous, and that's bad news. He realizes he got too greedy, and using Lucia's power put him right in the spotlight. The hunter world is very territorial, and when strong new competition appears, people try to remove it fast. Still, dwelling on it won't help. Once Lucia finishes eating, the two head back into the dungeon to bring the monster loot to the dwarf. Lucia's attack damaged the body too badly, so the only useful part they recovered was the head. The old dwarf is annoyed that the elf ruined such valuable material. Those two clearly can't stand each other. Juhaik cuts in and asks the dwarf if anything can still be made from it. After a short look, the dwarf pulls something out of the head, the organ that let the monster create lightning. With that, he can enchant Juhaik's baseball bat with lightning too. When Juhaik asks what payment he wants, the dwarf says he just wants the elf out of his workshop. Lucia trembles with rage, and Juhaik has to calm her down by promising more sweets. After barely stopping her from putting an arrow through the dwarf's head, he heads back to the city to buy what he promised. On the way home, he senses someone in an alley. It feels like he's being followed, so he sets his groceries behind a wall and calls out whoever's stalking him. A voice answers, shocked that Juhaik noticed. Then a figure suddenly appears and rushes him with a sword. Juhaik barely blocks it with his bat. The attacker is surprised Juhaik could even see him, which confirms the rumors. Juhaik is clearly not some average C rank. Juhaik knocks him back and swings again with the bat. If this guy won't talk, then he'll get beaten until he does. Unable to win head-on, the attacker turns invisible again and changes tactics. Juhaik can only barely feel where he is, not actually see him. That faint sense is enough to react when attacks come. Juhaik dodges and blocks most of them, but he knows he can't keep this up much longer. If he had his usual bat, tracking him would be easier. The dwarf still has that one, so he's stuck with a regular aluminum bat. He can't stay here. With no better option, Juhaik runs. Before he gets away, the hooded attacker sticks a tracker onto his shirt. Juhaik heads for a crowded place to lose him, but the tracker lets the attacker keep following his movements. The signal leads to a department store bathroom, and the attacker goes in after him, keeping himself hidden. He stops at the stall where the signal ends and kicks the door open, ready to strike, but the stall is empty, except for the tracker stuck to the wall. Too late, he realizes it was a trap. Jin-Yuk charges from behind with his bat raised. In a tight space like this, invisibility won't help. He barely dodges and slashes at Jin-Yuk's face with a knife, but Jin-Yuk avoids it and grabs his arm before slamming him to the floor. Nowhere to run, no breath left. Jin-Yuk lifts his bat and warns that if he doesn't talk, his head gets smashed next. Outside, a little boy desperately needs the bathroom. There's a sign blocking entry, but he can't wait. His father finally lets him go in. Right when the assassin is about to confess, he gets his chance. The assassin forms a fireball and throws it at both Jin-Yuk and the child, forcing Jin-Yuk to shield them. Using the smoke, the assassin makes a run for it. He was only supposed to gather information, not deal with a mess like this. But as he tries to escape, something pierces straight through his chest and kills him on the spot. Jin-Yuk stands behind him, breathing hard. Looks like he used too much force and killed him by accident. While he's stuck on that, a status window appears and recognizes the kill. Still, it counts it as self-defense, so he won't receive the villain trait. Instead, a hidden class change becomes available. After the brutal fight in the restroom, Jin-Yuk waits outside the scene, still trying to process everything. As far as he knew, any hunter who killed a person got branded a villain, and clerics like him would also have their skills sealed. He honestly thought his life as a hunter was over. Losing his cleric class would crush his fighting power, but killing that attacker triggered a class change instead. Soon, two detectives come over to take his statement about what happened in the restroom. The lead investigator, Jo Kyu-Hung-hun from the Hunter Affairs Division, shows his badge and politely asks for Jin-Yuk's help with the case. They've already identified the dead attacker as a magician hunter. Jin-Yuk tells them exactly what happened. Once the magician was cornered, he used deadly fire magic even though a child was in the blast range. Jin-Yuk worries about the boy, but the detectives say he only got minor burns. The boy and his father even thank Jin-Yuk from the bottom of their hearts. He's just glad the kid wasn't badly hurt. The detectives agree the child stayed safe because Jin-Yuk acted fast and handled it the right way. They also tell him the case should clearly count as self-defense, so once the investigation is done, he can go home. Jin-Yuk expected a much bigger headache, but thankfully the authorities are being reasonable. Detective Joe said the young man's actions before the fight mattered, and hunter laws were always a bit different. That wasn't the only reason they were going easy on him though. The bigger reason was simple. Even after killing someone, he never got the villain title. That mark only shows up when a person means to murder. If a killing happens in self-defense, the title doesn't appear. Most hunters already know that. So if Jin-Yuk kept this to himself, there'd be no need for a trial. But if he told other people what happened, the whole Hunter Affairs division could get dragged into trouble. Jin-Yuk understood, and kept quiet. Even so, the division knew trust alone had limits. To be safe, Detective Joe gave him a recording device. From that point on, Jin-Yuk had to carry it at all times. The device would react if it heard 3 forbidden words. If he said murder, villain, and self-defense, it would alert the authorities right away. As long as he stayed quiet about the case and avoided those words, nothing would happen. Detective Joe told Jin-Hyuk to go home and rest, while the division handled the cleanup. Jin-Hyuk thanked them and headed home, still looking down. Once he was gone, the detectives talked about him. He was rumored to be the one who captured that strange new monster, and now it was obvious those stories weren't just rumors. No normal C-rank hunter could block a full-power fire attack without injury while protecting a child, then beat a high-level mage criminal. By now, Jin-Hyuk's power clearly wasn't some overblown rumor. The division was sure of one thing. Kong Jin-Hyuk was far stronger than an average C-rank. All they could do was hope he stayed out of trouble so trust could grow. Finally alone, Jin-Hyuk checked his new class, Inquisitor. It was a hidden class with no public records. He always hoped he'd get something like this one day, just not this soon. Instead of staring at skill descriptions, he decided to test the class in a real fight. He let a goblin come close and swing at him. He was trying out the skill that replaced his healing power, Hard Skin. With it, enemy attacks did much less damage. He also gained a resistance skill that made poison, sleep, stun, and other effects less likely to work on him. Happy with the results, Jin-Hyuk raised his fist at the goblin. Now he finally got why people called this a transformation. His old skills were still there in a way, but now they focused on himself instead of helping others. Holy Aura was gone, replaced by Fighting Spirit, an aura built for battle. Fighting goblins barehanded was suddenly much easier. And Holy Shield had turned into Defense Charge, letting him rush forward with heavy defense and unstoppable force. Tearing through goblins with just his body became easy. He now had protection, a charging skill, and resistance to nearly every status effect. As an Inquisitor, he'd turned into a true combat tank. After testing his strength, he moved on to the rest of his new skills. One of them, Discernment, showed karma as a number tied to a person's morality. Jin-Hyuk pulled out his phone and used the front camera. Above his head, he saw the number 64. He still had no idea how useful this skill would be. He didn't even know whether 64 was good or bad. He also got another karma-based skill called Judgment. It boosted him when he fought enemies with high karma values. Against 200 karma, his stats rose by 20%, at 300, by 50%, and at 500 or more they doubled. In other words, he got stronger against bad people. That alone made Inquisitor feel worthy of a hidden class. Still, a class that openly pushes its user to hunt villains was unheard of. After testing everything out, Jin-Hyuk went straight to the forge. The old dwarf had finished adding lightning power to his bat. It could store up to 3 lightning charges, and each one took 30 minutes to recover. Jin-Hyuk was obviously thrilled with the upgrade. He asked how to use it, and the answer was pretty simple. The dwarf had caught a kobold trying to steal from his workshop, and chained it up out back. It made a perfect test target. The monster snapped and growled, but the chains held. To fire the lightning, Jin-Hyuk didn't need a spell. In a fight, all he had to do was picture the attack in his mind. He focused on the target. Then, he took a batting stance, and imagined lightning flowing through the bat. Zhengbao took a breath and concentrated. With one full swing, he fired a thunderball. It tore through the air in a burst of crackling power. The moment it hit, the kobold screamed as the lightning ripped through its body. A single charge was enough to burn the creature to a crisp. Its body fell apart into dust, and the chains dropped loose. Even the bones were charred black, proving just how deadly the thunder charge was. The old dwarf looked proud of his work. A long-range attack would make things much easier for Zhengbao now. After the test, Lucia walked up and asked if they could talk for a moment. She pulled him aside, grabbed the strange pendant on his neck, and demanded to know what he'd been doing outside. Lucia had noticed his divine power was gone. That pendant only made her more suspicious. She was worried Zhengbao had gotten mixed up in something strange. He quickly told her it was all a misunderstanding. Then he explained the incident to Lucia and the old dwarf. His divine power had changed into something else, and he couldn't give the full story because of the device the detectives gave him. The dwarf thought the answer was simple: deal with the device first, so they could hear everything. He was willing to mess with it, but first Zhengbao had to run an errand for him. The old dwarf promised it was nothing major, just a small favor in return for fixing the device. After digging through his bag, he tossed Zhengbao a compass. One look at it was enough for Lucia to figure out where he was being sent, and she looked worried. Zhengbao had no idea what he was walking into, and asked if the place was dangerous. That small errand brought Kang Zhengbao to a deadly mountain path that barely seemed possible. With basic climbing gear, he lowered himself into a hole that looked endless. The old dwarf had sent him somewhere this dangerous just to mine ore. While Zhengbao struggled, Lucia looked completely relaxed and even teased him for having such a hard time. She warned him to follow her exactly and not wander off if he wanted to stay safe. Then Lucia showed off and leaped from the cliff with ease. Without even using a rope, she climbed down by hand. Zhengbao could only sigh. There was no way he could copy that so easily. Lucia mocked him for being scared. To her, he was holding himself back for no reason. Then, without hesitating, she dropped deeper into the pit and let gravity carry her down. Zhengbao started to wonder if she was right. Maybe he was still thinking like a normal person and not trusting his new body. So he finally let go of the rope and followed Lucia in freefall, deciding to test himself for once. Near the end of the drop, he used his hands and legs to stop his fall. He landed beside Lucia without a scratch, and that was when Zhengbao truly understood he wasn't normal anymore. Lucia already knew his body was superhuman. He'd just been trapped by old fear. Later, while resting on the cliff, they talked about what happened outside. Lucia worried that removing the device could backfire, but if the old dwarf said it was fine, then he probably had a way. Grumpy or not, the blacksmith was talented and dependable. Even Lucia, who couldn't stand the old dwarf, admitted he was reliable with this kind of thing. Then she got curious about the karma numbers tied to Zhengbao's new class. She asked for hers, and Jin Yuk said it was 82, the highest out of the three. His was 64, and the old dwarf's was 72. Considering the hard life Lucia had lived, that result didn't surprise her much. She'd done whatever she had to do to survive. Still, she found it strange that the gap between her and Jin Yuk was only about 20 points when he had killed one person, and she had lost count of hers long ago. That made her remember something. In her old world, some saints could tell good from evil at a glance. Jin Yuk said he was nowhere near a saint, and Lucia agreed. She only meant that powers like this existed in other worlds too. Lucia didn't care much about finding ore for the old dwarf. What she really wanted was to figure out Jin Yuk's new powers. When he asked why she was so interested, she just teased him and said he was fun to watch. Since they wouldn't learn much about karma by sitting in an empty dungeon, Lucia suggested testing it outside. Jin Yuk felt a little guilty about delaying the dwarf's job, but understanding his new abilities mattered more right now. Lucia had a point. Staying down there alone wouldn't teach him much, so he reached into his pocket and pulled out a return stone. Feeling bad for the old man or not, he used the item to jump back to a place he'd marked outside. The moment he crushed the stone, a rift opened beside them. Lucia paused in surprise, before the portal pulled them both in. Strangely, using it raised Jin Yuk's karma. A few minutes later, they were back on a busy city street. Lucia grabbed a drink, while Jin Yuk noticed people still staring at them despite her camouflage spell. She'd already told him she was hiding her real form with magic, but the fake human outfit only made her stand out more. People around them kept staring at the beautiful woman beside Jin Yuk. Lucia smugly said magic couldn't hide how pretty she was. As much as he wanted to argue, Jin Yuk couldn't. She might really be the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. Dropping the small talk, Lucia summed up what they knew. Karma goes up when you do bad things. For example, Jin Yuk gained 1 point just for breaking his promise to the dwarf. So it's not only violence, other rotten actions count too. But if the harm is agreed to, or done in self-defense, karma doesn't rise. They still didn't know what counted as low or high though. What they did know was this. Once someone passes 200, they're marked as a villain. Killing a person like that doesn't bring a penalty. At that point, it's treated as self-defense, not murder. The system doesn't even see them as human anymore. Since Lucia and the dwarf were both still under 100, getting past 200 meant someone was seriously evil. Jin Yuk had watched people all day and hadn't seen a single normal passerby over 50. This peaceful part of town was clearly a dead end. If they wanted people with high karma, they needed a worse neighborhood. Luckily, the city's red light district was an easy place to start. Lucia was amazed by the bright lights at night and asked if people weren't worried about monsters finding them. Jin Yuk explained that Earth normally doesn't have monsters roaming around. The district's air bothered her elf senses, but she admitted the lights were nice. Every world had something good about it. While they walked through the sketchy streets, a shady bar worker came up and praised Lucia's looks. He said their place was running an event, and pretty women could get up to 5 cocktails for free. Lucia shoved him aside and kept moving. Before she got far, Jin Hyuk caught her shoulder and told her to wait. He said they should go in and take those free drinks. The worker brightened up and led them inside, promising Lucia the best service in the house. After a whole day of finding only ordinary karma levels, Jinhyuk finally saw what he'd been looking for. The bar worker himself had 300 karma over his head. The two sat down at the counter and drank what they were served. Lucia liked the cocktail right away because it was sweet. Meanwhile, the worker laughed to himself. He'd poisoned both drinks with something that could paralyze a person from a single drop. When it looked like the poison had kicked in, he gave a signal to the thugs waiting nearby. They moved for Jinhyuk first, but as they closed in, he calmly asked if they were really sure about this. His resistance skill had already cancelled out the poison. Jinhyuk spun around and smashed one thug in the jaw. He was actually enjoying it. Finally, he could test his body on some real targets. Then he drew back and threw another punch, this time hitting two men at once. The way they flew made it obvious his strength was no joke. He didn't give them time to recover, and turned sharply, then drove a kick into another thug's face, and dropped him in one hit. At the same time, Lucia slowly opened her eyes as the paralysis started fading. She turned and found thugs all over the floor, knocked down by Jinhyuk. Confused, she asked what was going on. Jinhyuk casually told her he was just taking out the trash. Seeing his men get crushed, the bar worker called in his trump card. A buzzcut thug stepped forward and took off his jacket, his shirt stretching over bulging muscles. He knew Jinhyuk wasn't someone to underestimate. Buzzcut charged hard, and neither Jinhyuk nor Lucia looked impressed. Jinhyuk kept his eyes on the big man rushing straight at him. Lucia took another sip of the poison cocktail and asked if he wanted help. He refused. One more thug was nothing to him. Buzzcut got furious, hearing them talk like he didn't matter. He threw his strongest punch, only for Jinhyuk to catch it perfectly. No matter how hard he pushed or twisted, he couldn't move Jinhyuk at all. That could only mean one thing. Jinhyuk was a hunter, and from the way Buzzcut moved, he looked like one too. If so, he should have been out killing monsters, not working in some filthy bar. Buzzcut hadn't expected to meet someone like Jinhyuk here. Realizing he couldn't win, he was already thinking about how to escape. Then Jinhyuk twisted his grip just a little and crushed the man's fist. Buzzcut screamed as several bones cracked at once, but Jinhyuk still wasn't finished. To shut him up, he drove a punch straight into his mouth. Buzzcut went flying and slammed into the chairs behind the bar. With the thugs down, only the terrified bar worker was left. Jinhyuk rushed him like an animal and locked him in a chokehold, so tight it nearly crushed his throat. He lifted the man off the ground, cutting off his air as the questioning began. And to make that questioning work, Jinhyuk softened him up first. He beat the villain so badly, blood splashed across the bar. By the time he stopped, his own fists were red. The man's face was so wrecked it barely looked human anymore. Then Jinhyuk finally questioned him. This clearly wasn't the first time the worker had drugged people and taken women, so someone had to be backing him. The man stubbornly denied it, but Jinhyuk didn't buy that for a second. Those hired thugs had to belong to something bigger, because a nobody couldn't keep running a scheme like this alone. Staring him in the eye, Jinhyuk gave him one last chance to talk. Even beaten and terrified, the worker still insisted there was no backer. That meant one of two things. Either he was insanely loyal, or whoever stood behind him was even scarier than Jinhyuk. To find out, Jinhyuk decided to get rougher. He grabbed one of the man's legs and started pulling. The worker panicked, writhing and screaming. Jinhyuk coldly said he was just helping him find the will to speak. The worker tried to act brave, claiming pain wouldn't make him talk. Jinhyuk was ready to prove him wrong, but Lucia cut in and told him to move aside. His method was too messy and too slow. A strange power formed in her hand as she raised it toward the man's face. His expression changed at once, going from fear to a loose, dazed calm. A few seconds passed after Lucia's power entered his body. Then his face twisted with madness. He started ranting, asking if they'd been sent by an organization called Altron, and shouted that it was already too late no matter what Altron did. Whatever Lucia used turned him into a babbling wreck. She'd only meant to make confession easier, not drive him insane and make him spill everything. He kept raving that Altron was nothing, because the Tyrant Guild would wipe out all their enemies. Just like that, they found the group behind the whole operation, the Tyrant Guild. This was far bigger than Jinhyuk first thought, so he asked why the man was so sure Tyrant would win. The drooling thug answered with one phrase. They had all Ranun's elixir. That only confused Jinhyuk more. He had no idea what that meant. A few minutes later, the police arrived to investigate, and Jinhyuk and Lucia slipped away. Without meaning to, they'd uncovered a huge plot tied to a major guild. As they left, Lucia explained that Alrun's elixir is a drug that doubles the user's stats, but making it takes countless young women as sacrifices. She never imagined an Earth Guild could create something that evil. She could hardly believe anyone here was actually trying to make it. That elixir existed in her world too. There, it was called the Queen's Tear. One of Lucia's close friends had been sacrificed as fertilizer for it when they were young. Years later, right after reaching platinum rank, Lucia went on a rampage and wiped out the group behind the drug that made it. That explains the dark look she had ever since they left the bar. Now the real question is what they do next. The barman said the elixir was almost finished, so they needed to crush the Tyrant Guild before that happened. Back at the bar, after the police were gone, a man dressed in black reported the incident to his superiors. With a mask and glasses hiding most of his face, he concluded this was not some internal fight. The strange part was that the attackers only killed the barman and left. That wasn't how a rival guild or one of their own people would handle it, so his next mission was clear: find whoever ruined their operation and fast. He was sure he could bring them in quickly. Now let's check in on the Titan Guild. Its top people were overseas on business, and Secretary Hyena reported that their Hong Kong trip had gone very well. If things kept improving in the first half of the year, they might even recruit 15 more members. The guild was doing great, but Seo Songho wasn't. He was stuck on the news about Alround's elixir. Just like he thought, Hyena had never heard of it. The association had been working hard to keep it hidden. Hyena also couldn't return to Korea yet because she still had work to finish abroad. Seo Songho had to move on his own for now. He told Hyena to send an urgent order across the guild at once. Starting now, Titan Guild would treat Tyrant Guild as a hostile enemy. War was coming. Caught off guard, Hyena asked for an explanation before dragging the whole guild into a huge conflict. Songho only said that if they didn't prepare now, the future would be even worse. If the report he got was true, waiting for chaos to start would be too late. Hyena pushed him, asking what information could make him act this extreme. Songho knew better than anyone that this was basically a declaration of war against a force as large as theirs. He also told her that Alround Guild, and even the government, would likely stand with them when the time came. Even then, war was dangerous for everyone. Hyena urged him to at least speak with the guild executives before making such a serious call. But Songho had already decided. His mind was set, and he had no patience for pointless meetings. One look in his eyes told Hyena this wasn't changing. Songho was usually careful, so this kind of firm decision meant a lot. He knew she was uneasy about moving without enough facts, but for now he needed her trust. He wanted the order spread quietly inside the guild while they investigated in secret. The public declaration could wait. As for that investigation, Songho already had a few people in mind. What changed him so suddenly? A single text from Jin Yuk about Tyrant's plan to make that vile drug through human sacrifice. Meanwhile, Lucia lounged around Jin Yuk's place, eating sweets and pressing him about his next move. She was relieved there were still dependable, level-headed people in this world like Seo Sangho. If no one agreed to fight Tyrant Guild with them, she would have done it herself. It also helped that Alrun's elixir was clearly made through something horribly cruel. Jin Yuk asked when she planned to go back to the dungeon instead of emptying his pantry. Lucia flat out refused. She wasn't going back to some boring dungeon and missing a raid on an evil guild. In her eyes, any hunters willing to create something this twisted had to be dangerous. Even Jin Yuk had to admit he couldn't take on a group that big alone. So Lucia formally offered to help wipe them out. He thanked her, even if she didn't owe him anything. Then someone knocked on the door and called out Kang Jin Yuk's name. He wasn't expecting anyone, so that immediately put him on guard. Maybe it was a delivery, or maybe something worse, like the masked man looking into the bar incident. That man had a magic compass that could track people through blood. Using the barman's blood, he followed the trace left on Jin Yuk. He moved across the city without even needing a car, jumping from rooftop to rooftop as the hunt began. At last, the trail led him to an apartment building. He stared at the place, feeling something was off. For a moment, the building looked strangely blurry. He brushed it off, then realized whose home it was, the hunter who dealt with the Leviathan a few days earlier. That meant the two incidents could be connected, but he didn't care. He had a job to do, and he was going to do it. A thick, evil-looking needle appeared in his hand. He planned to capture his target and get answers. Jin Yuk went to the door and asked who it was. Just as expected, the masked man claimed he was a late delivery, delayed by an accident. Jin Yuk wasn't buying it. No real delivery would show up this late at night. On top of that, a recognition blocking spell still covered the house, making it nearly impossible to find. So if someone got through that and pretended to be a delivery worker, they were obviously here for trouble. Still, Jin Yuk opened the door while staying ready, and the masked man instantly forced his way in with the needle. Jin Yuk expected a cheap trick, so he caught the attacker's wrist and joked, asking if poison darts came free with deliveries now. The ambusher ended up being the one caught off guard. Lucia cut in and fired an arrow, telling Jin Yuk to move. At that distance, the shot was nearly impossible to dodge, and it tore straight through the masked man. The impact blasted him out from the second floor. Blood poured out as the arrow sank deeper, and Lucia quickly knocked another shot. She told Jin Yuk to step aside so she could finish him. But Jin Yuk stopped her and said he'd handle it himself. The attacker was probably here because of the bar. Lucia warned him this guy was no ordinary enemy if he could survive her arrow. As the masked man struggled to pull it free, a chill ran through him. Who was that woman who pushed him this close to death with one hit? He finally yanked the tip out, blood spilling onto the pavement. Every instinct screamed at him to retreat. By the time Jin Yuk moved after him, the masked man was already fleeing across the nearby rooftops. Despite his injuries, Lucia asked if he wanted to chase, but Jin Yuk said it wasn't worth the hassle. The guy would come after him again anyway, and they could settle it later. What mattered more was the masked man's karma value. It was over 900, meaning he killed without hesitation. Jin Yuk had been wanting to face a real villain, so this was perfect. He was even thinking about how he might use the man later. The next day, Jin-Hyuk and Lucia rode in a guild car to the mountains, where the driver stopped and pointed out the remote investigation site. They had been brought here on Sangho's direct orders, but plenty of people in Titan Guild still didn't like Jin-Hyuk. Looking over the hunters gathered there, he guessed that half were A rank or higher. This was an elite team, and leading it was the same jerk who had tried to start trouble with him before, Executive Han Young. Right away, Jin-Hyuk had a bad feeling this mission was going to get annoying fast. Young introduced himself as the operations leader. To Jin-Hyuk's surprise, he even brought up their last meeting during the airstrike. Jin-Hyuk pointed out how different he seemed now, much friendlier than before. Young cleared his throat and awkwardly apologized for how he'd acted back then. He said he got too worked up over guild matters and wanted to make sure their first clash wouldn't affect today's mission. Young also asked about the woman with him, and Jin-Hyuk introduced Lucia as a capable ally who wouldn't get in the way. There had been no notice about extra personnel, so the executive was shaken, but before he could complain, the recon team returned. Young stepped away to hear the scouts report. Even with the apology, he still looked down on Jin-Hyuk and Lucia, seeing them as nothing more than C-rank rookies. Their strength didn't matter to this four-eyed snake anyway. He had his own plans for this mission. Lucia noticed right away that he was two-faced, and asked Jin-Hyuk if they were really going to let him lead. He told her they'd be fine. More importantly, someone had been following them for a while. Lucia and Jin-Hyuk noticed right away, but he let the tale keep going since he might be useful later. Before the raid began, Jin-Hyuk gave Lucia a glowing magic crystal. It was a communication tool. As long as they're within 10 kilometers, they can contact each other, so he told her to keep it close. Young-Suk returned with the scouts report. Everything pointed to the Tyrant Guild running a human trafficking operation. Then the executive said he had a favor to ask Jin-Hyuk. The recon team had found a powerful barrier around the building, and they believed only one person could slip through it without being noticed. According to Young-Suk, that person was Jin-Hyuk. Jin-Hyuk called him out right away. This was basically asking him to walk alone into enemy territory and die. Even so, the executive kept acting like a fair leader. He even threw in a smug comment that only the man who beat the Leviathan could handle a mission like this. He also argued that Jin-Hyuk would do better alone than with Titan Guild hunters he had never teamed up with. Young-Suk was dumping all the danger on Jin-Hyuk, but that was exactly what he wanted. So Jin-Hyuk moved out with a small group of Titan Guild hunters toward the one weak point in the barrier. The plan was easy. The magic team would open a tiny gap, and Jin-Hyuk would slip through. They reached the east side of the facility and picked up speed. The mages could only hold the opening for a few seconds, so Jin-Hyuk had to move fast. Without delay, they started breaking a small opening in the barrier for him. Jin-Hyuk didn't care that they were clearly sending him straight to the enemy. He only wanted to see what the Tyrant Guild was hiding in these mountains. The second the gap opened, he dashed inside. Then Jin-Hyuk suddenly stopped. He summoned his bat and stared at the strange sight ahead. The inside looked nothing like the outside, which meant the barrier was also hiding the base with a distortion effect. First, he needed to find a way into the main camp. After a few minutes, one thing felt off. There were far fewer guards than he expected. The first one he noticed was standing near the barrier, by what looked like an entrance. If someone was guarding that spot, it had to matter. So far, it was his best lead. He jumped up and lifted his bat, putting all his strength into the swing. But the moment he struck, the guard vanished into smoke, and the bat slammed into the ground. It was just an illusion. He had planned to knock a guard out and question him to get through the door. Since that failed, he'd have to figure it out himself. To his surprise, this high-security place had automatic doors like a grocery store. The security was a joke, and there didn't seem to be any cameras either. They clearly believed the kidnapped women had no way to escape. Still, Jin-Hyuk decided to play it safe, and pulled out a backup plan from his inventory. It was an EMP generator made from electric monster parts, and he casually set it on the floor. That would shut down nearby communications and security systems. That's also why he gave Lucia the magic crystal. Once the EMP kicked in, Jin-Hyuk mapped out his next move. Now that the compound was cut off, he could start the real job. From a distance, the masked man kept watching Jin-Hyuk. He was starting to connect him to the bar incident and the Titan Guild. Like everyone else, the masked man had his own agenda, and Jin-Hyuk was a key part of it. After Jin-Hyuk triggered the EMP, one lazy guard noticed his phone died in the middle of his game. He grumbled and blamed the bad signal out in the middle of nowhere. By the time he realized something was wrong, a red bat had already smashed into the side of his face. Jin-Hyuk didn't even swing it. He threw the bat and struck the guy with the blunt end. After confirming the guard was down, he used auto-recovery to pull the bat back. At last, Jin-Hyuk had found a real person to hit. Blood sprayed the wall as the guard crashed onto the concrete. This man wasn't a hunter. He was just a normal person, but he still had 800 karma over his head. That told Jin-Hyuk all he needed to know. This place was full of monsters in human form, and he could wipe them out without regret. Past the locked gate, he found a long hallway lined with prison cells. This had to be where the kidnapped women were being held. The conditions inside were horrible. The women were chained up like animals, waiting to be used as fertilizer for that cursed elixir. Then a man's voice cut into his thoughts and asked who he was. One cell stood out from the rest. Instead of a woman, it held a man, and Jin Hyuk recognized the Tyrant Guild uniform he was wearing. The prisoner warned him to run while he still could, because everyone in the facility had gone mad. Outside, the sleazy team leader checked his watch and kept track of Jin Hyuk's infiltration. It had been a while, and everything was still quiet. Maybe it was time for the main force to move. Young-sok ordered his men forward and told them to wait near the facility, ready to enter if anything changed. The moment he gave the signal, the Titan hunters rushed in all at once. Lucia stayed where she was, calm and still, and Young-sok couldn't figure her out. At last, the four-eyed bastard moved up with his men, while Jin Hyuk handled the hard part inside. Lucia started wondering if it was time for her move too. Before the mission, Jin Hyuk told her he'd handle everything inside alone. Her job was to watch the Titans outside. They still had no idea what Young-sok might try, so Lucia needed to stay sharp. He told her not to get too involved, but that's never really stopped her. Back inside, the prisoner introduced himself as Yong Dae-yoon. Jin Hyuk asked why a Tyrant Guild member was locked up like this, and Dae-yoon admitted he had tried to kill Alran herself. Now they were keeping him alive only because they needed his illusion skills. That meant the distorted barrier and the fake guard were his work. Jin Hyuk wanted to know why he turned on his own guild. Dae-yoon said he couldn't stand watching women get fed to monsters as bait anymore, so he tried to kill Alprone and got caught. Jin Hyuk was honestly surprised to meet a decent Tyrant Guild member. Even his karma was low, just 62, so he invited Dae-yoon to work with him and bring this place down. Meanwhile, the grunt in charge of the control room was fast asleep in his chair. When he finally woke up, he realized he'd nodded off again. It wasn't unusual for him. He always got sleepy around this time, and nothing ever happened here anyway. But instead of the usual live feeds, every screen was black. He looked around trying to figure out what was going on, but got nowhere. In a panic, he tried to restart the system, only to realize the power source had been fried by Jin Hyuk's EMP. Every electronic device, even smartphones, was dead. The whole system was down, and the control room idiot was somehow still in the running for Employee of the Month. Just outside the command center, a few tyrant thugs were killing time with a card game. That ended fast when the control room guy came out shouting about an emergency. The men jumped up, mostly because their game got ruined. He told them the entire system had gone offline. Worse, all the women were gone from their cells. An intruder had thrown the whole facility into chaos. The team leader split them up. Team 1 would go to the elixir production room, while Team 2 searched for the intruder and the women. As for the fool who let it happen, he was ordered to find a way to contact headquarters no matter what. Every cell had been opened, and the kidnapped women were free. Now they were running for the nearest exit, and Dae-yoon guided them through the best route since he knew the layout. They almost made it, but not quite. The tyrant men found their trail and closed in on the escaping group. The first one there recognized Dae-yoon as he pointed the women toward the exit. Dae-yoon let the women pass and stayed behind to buy them more time. One tyrant thug rushed in alone, eager to kill Dae-yoon for good. The moment the attack came, Tien-yoon reminded his old allies what he does best: illusion. The thug was furious that he got fooled by such a basic trick. While Team 2 chased Dae-yoon and the women, Team 1 ran into something much worse. They brought knives to a baseball bat fight, and Jin Hyuk tore through the squad guarding the Alran production room. He used his superior Jin Hyuk skill and footwork made those sloppy fighters look helpless. He smashed them down one after another, each with a single swing. After dropping the last tyrant member without even breathing hard, Jin Hyuk knew the door they guarded had to be hiding Alarin. He opened the room and stepped in carefully. Inside was the gear the tyrant scum used to make that cruel drug. They had even built a huge underground lab to hide it. Human-sized tubes filled the room, and inside them were kidnapped women. Seeing how big this whole operation was made Jin Hyuk sick. At the center stood a monster sealed behind glass. This had to be Alrune, the source of all this misery. Jin Hyuk tightened his grip on the bat. The creature wasn't reacting, so maybe it was asleep. Grinning, he pulled lightning into his weapon and took a batting stance. If this worked, he could end it for good, but it wasn't that easy. Alrune sensed the danger, woke up, shattered the glass, and fired her tentacles straight at him. Jin Hyuk had to dodge non-stop as the tentacles stabbed at his vital spots, forcing him to cancel the lightning strike. As he watched how they moved, his fear started to grow. Those things were heavy and fast. One bad hit could kill him. For now, all he could do was defend and wait for a chance. He forced himself to focus. If he wanted to survive, he had to stay calm. And no, this is not the cute tentacle girl some people were hoping for. Alrune looked more like a crazed monster with tentacles. Then she burst fully out of the glass, sending sharp shards everywhere. For once it really looked like our guy was outmatched. Jin Hyuk activates hard skin to give himself more defense. He slips past another strike and charges in, ready to finish this fight. But a brutal counterattack almost breaks him, and that's when he realizes just how strong she is. He regains his footing, then gets ready to move again. This enemy won't go down easy, so he has to push even harder. With his focus back, Jin Hyuk unleashes one last attack. dead set on ending the fight against the creature that feeds on people. He barely manages to bring it down, then he spots something strange nearby, Alround's magic stone. When he checks it, he finds it can't be appraised, but its size and shape make it look like a magic stone. He decides to save the questions for later, and ask the dwarf uncle about it. Next, Jin-hyuk wonders what's happening outside. He contacts Lucia, asking if she can hear him, and whether the girls got out safely. Lucia says a man led them down the mountain, but the people chasing them are dressed the same, which makes it confusing. After hearing that, he explains the man used to be locked up for betraying the Tyrant Guild, but he seems reliable. They teamed up, so he's on their side. Now that part is settled, Lucia asks the bigger question, has Alperon been dealt with? Jin-hyuk says yes, and he also secured the magic stone. Still thinking about the fight outside, Kang Jin-hyuk asks about the people who chased the girls. Lucia says they've been battling for a while. The moment the group in white showed up, the Titan side rushed to fight them, but something about it feels off. She says the ones in white ate something, and then their bodies changed. Now the Titans who started with the advantage are beginning to lose ground. Jin-hyuk starts to wonder if this transformation is tied to the drug Alron made. He quickly realizes this could turn into a huge problem if the Titan Guild falls here. Even if he finds the Titan members annoying, stopping the Titan Guild matters more right now, so he asks Lucia to step in before things get worse. Lucia gets the idea right away, and agrees to handle the enemies in white. She tells Jin-hyuk he can rely on her, but in return, she wants plenty of sweets. Jin-hyuk can tell things on Lucia's side are coming together. Certain the battle is almost done, he calls out to someone hiding nearby, Mr. Deliveryman. A hidden figure finally steps out, shocked that Kang Jin-hyuk noticed him. Jin-hyuk asks if he came for him, or for Alshrin's magic stone too. The man admits that was his goal at first, but not anymore. Jin-hyuk warns him he's going to regret that choice. Once they clash, the enemy is stunned by Jin-hyuk's reaction speed, far beyond what a normal C-rank hunter should have. He remembers how Jin-hyuk blocked those poison darts earlier, and starts wondering if that really was luck. Even so, he tells himself that in the end, he's only fighting a C-rank hunter. He uses his ability and goes in for the finish, but then he notices something he didn't expect. Jin-hyuk is wearing armor. He tries to pull back, but before he can escape, something sharp stops him cold. Jin-hyuk isn't letting him get away this time. The enemy barely blocks the next blow. That's when doubt really sets in. Jin-hyuk is way stronger than he expected. Angry and unable to accept the loss, he yells that he'll get revenge. But Jin-hyuk makes it clear there won't be a next time. This place will be his grave. Once the fallen are dealt with, attention turns to the wounded. Keeping them safe comes first, and someone still needs to make a report. The hidden drugs the tyrants were making leave everyone shocked. Without help from a mysterious woman, they never would have survived. Her arrows hit with power close to an S rank, yet no one knows any female hunter with that kind of strength. Now that things have calmed down, the injured are sent to the hospital, and every bit of evidence is collected. With the tyrant seemingly handled, they turn back to wrapping up the welcome party, but before they can, someone rushes in, out of breath with urgent news. The Tyrant Guild leader and their strongest fighters are on the way. And once Cho-won Chal, an S-rank hunter, is mentioned, it's obvious staying here would be a terrible idea. The guy with glasses gets frustrated. They were so close to beating them, and now they have to pull back. Then another urgent message comes in. A small tyrant group is moving in fast, probably their advance team. The warning was real. The enemy is closing in fast, so there's no choice but to end the mission now. The decision is made right away. Everyone has to leave immediately. One person chooses to stay behind, because vanishing would look suspicious. Staying lets them build an alibi, shift the blame, and avoid a direct war between Titan and Tyrant. After thinking it over, they decide to pin everything on Hunter Kang Jin-hyuk, who is still inside. It's the best cover story they have, and it lets them slip away cleanly. Some still worry about trusting a traitor, since fooling the Tyrant Guild won't be easy. But the point isn't to fool them forever, it's to buy time. Time they'll use to get ready for war. And when the truth comes out, they'll have every reason to strike and wipe out the enemy. After that, Lucia asks if the person there is the one Kang Jin-hyuk mentioned. There's no time to waste. The protagonist Jin-hyuk is waiting inside, and things are going even smoother than expected. When they arrive, our guy quickly fills the others in on the latest, including that he already took care of the pursuer. Asked about the situation, he says Alshrini is dead, but there's still one more problem. He asks for help, making it look like the body in front of them was killed fighting Alshrin. The reason for that soon becomes obvious. He hands over a document and tells them to read it. As they go through it, everyone is stunned. The names on the list belong to recent victims from a string of brutal murders. If this is true, then it's terrifying. The Great Guild Killer has always targeted major guilds, so if they blame him, no one will suspect anything else. Kang Jin-hyuk lays out the plan and asks Jung if he can make it work. Jung agrees right away. It's a solid idea. Lucia still isn't fully sure about everything, so she asks if this could cause problems later. MC assures them it's under control. With that settled, the next step is getting out fast. The Tyrant Guild's main force should arrive soon, but that story wasn't fully true. They are coming. just not for at least 2 more hours. The group seen earlier was only an illusion. Zhang thanks Jin Hyuk for rescuing everyone he could, but Jin Hyuk says thanks can wait. The real fight is only starting, and the Tyrant Guild has just taken a huge hit. Once word spreads, other guilds won't stay quiet. Jin Hyuk is already looking forward to watching the Tyrant Guild fall apart. Their collapse feels closer than ever. What they were hiding is even worse than expected, so the higher-ups need to know. To avoid getting dragged straight into a guild war, the information has to be sent anonymously to the Hunter Association, police, government, and media. Some worry that exposing it all will just help rival guilds, but saving innocent people matters more than any short-term gain. Before long, the truth spreads everywhere. A powerful hunter guild had secretly been raising monsters and feeding people to them. The public is horrified, and officials call it a major crime, as they promise a full investigation. The major guilds step in and offer full support to uncover how far these crimes go, but the Tyrant Guild refuses to help with the investigation at all. Then Young Sok completely loses it when the whole story blows up online. Right then, Titan Guild Master Seo Sung-ho calls him. Young Sok snaps at him, blaming the guild master for letting all this reach the public. He's furious because after everything they did, another guild is getting praised as the one that exposed the truth. If this had stayed secret, the Tyrant Guild could have struck back before anyone joined forces against them. Han Young-sok argues that if they'd recruited an S-class hunter, beating the Tyrant Guild would have been guaranteed. Sok Sung-ho isn't convinced. Even with an S-class, he says beating the Tyrant Guild master was never certain. While Han Young-sok keeps pushing the idea of taking over the Tyrant Guild without worrying about the cost, Sok Sung-ho fires back that innocent people could get hurt, so the risk is too great. He then questions Han Young-sok's real motive, reminding him a guild is supposed to protect people, not just chase more power. Han Young-sok insists he was only trying to do what was best. Still, he can tell the guildmaster never takes his ideas seriously. To him, the Titan Guild has no future under its current leader, and is heading for collapse. After that, the bastard reaches out to someone in secret. He offers them a high position in the guild if they help overthrow the current Titan Guild master. Then our boy gets ready for a private meeting. The place they chose for a secret talk is pretty strange. Still, Young arrives right on time. Kang Jin-yuk welcomes him and notices he seems more sure of himself now. So far, the plan is working, and the lies they set up earlier have made things inside the guild much easier. Even so, they still aren't fully safe. The guild plans to send a team after him. With the guild already this shaky, it's odd that they still have the manpower for that. The problem is, some of the higher-ups have started questioning what happened. The news about the murderer's body spread too fast, and now they're starting to think someone else may be the real killer. There isn't any proof yet, and the plan kept his identity hidden, but suspicion is starting to grow, so he still has to be careful. For now, staying quiet is the smartest move, until the Tyrant Guild fully falls apart. Zhang then gives him the names of the people leading the search, and asks if he wants to check them right away. Kang Jin-yuk says that won't be needed because they're all just decoys. He already knew that from the start. Once they're alone, he asks who is really hunting him. The real threats are an archer and a mage, both skilled at disguise and hiding their presence. They could even come near him while pretending to be someone he knows. After hearing that, he's given one more important detail. Zhang brings up something called the monster counter. Kang Jin-yuk remembers seeing one while helping the Titan Guild before, but this one is different. It's an upgraded version. After studying the Al-Round incident, the association made a new system to track hunters. Soon, every hunter, starting with those in guilds, will have to wear one and stay under the association's watch. That could even make dungeon hunting harder. So if Kang Jin-yuk wants to take the pill and grow stronger, he needs to do it before the system is fully rolled out. If his power jumps after that, the association will notice, and the Tyrant Guild might start getting suspicious too. To avoid drawing attention, he has to finish this as fast as possible. He didn't expect a tracking system like this, but now he has no choice. More than anything, he needs to get stronger, even if it's only by a little, so he wastes no time and heads straight for the dungeon. There, the dwarf is mad that our boy disappeared after being sent to collect ore, only to come back with something totally unexpected. Kang Jin-yuk apologizes and says the delay couldn't be helped. After vanishing for weeks, he suddenly shows up again like nothing happened, and the dwarf is clearly not happy. He apologizes again and tries to explain that he had something important to handle. But that doesn't fix the real problem. The thing he brought back isn't normal material. It's cursed, packed with the grudges of many dwarves, and dwarves are so sensitive to curses they won't even go near it. Lucia had left earlier for something urgent, and now it looks like this was the reason. Instead of the ore they needed, he came back with something useless, and he's told to throw it away. Panicking, he says he didn't know what it was, but that excuse doesn't help now. Even so, tossing it out feels wasteful. There has to be some other use for it. That leaves only one choice, and Lucia's earlier words finally start to make sense. She had hinted that the dwarf wouldn't be able to handle what Kang Jin-hyuk brought, and now the reason is obvious. There is one place below the cliff he visited before, the Temple of the Dragon. He's given a key and told to open the temple and remove the curse from the ore. If it works, they'll make him a weapon, even better than the one he has now. Still, he wonders if the key will really open the place. It will, but he's warned that this is no normal temple. It's more dangerous than any dungeon he's faced before. Going in without proper prep would be reckless. So for now, he decides to leave. No matter how far they've come, staying alive matters more. Kang Jin-yuk watches Lucia race ahead and realizes just how fast she is. He starts thinking about how to prepare for what's coming, but potions and scrolls alone don't feel like enough. Before he can ask Lucia what she thinks, he catches her eating the food supply that was supposed to last a whole month. Before he can say anything, a call cuts him off. Secretary Haina from the Titan Guild urgently begs for his help and says it's about Sang-ho. Her panic makes him wonder what could have happened. After hearing how serious it is, Kang Jin-yuk rushes over. Haina's voice alone tells him this is bad. When he gets there, he finds Sang-ho in critical shape, covered in blood and barely alive. Haina desperately tries to calm him down. Jin-yuk doesn't waste a second and starts first aid right away. He pours a potion over the wound, which eases some of the damage. Once the worst of it passes, he demands answers, trying to figure out what led to such a brutal attack. Sang-ho painfully explains that his own guild members set a trap for him. After coming back home, he went to a guild event, expecting an ordinary meeting. Then he noticed something was wrong. Only Han Young-sok's side was there. By the time he understood what was happening, it was already too late. His drink had been poisoned. His body quickly started to fail, but he still forced himself to fight his way out. Even with all his strength, he barely escaped before collapsing from his injuries. Jin-yuk listens closely. Even poisoned, Sang-ho shouldn't have been brought down by regular guild members alone, so Jin-yuk suspects something else happened too. Before he can ask more, Sang-ho suddenly shakes in pain. His condition gets worse, and the wounds the potion had closed begin opening again. The poison is far worse than Jin-yuk expected. Realizing time is running out, he asks if anyone knows what poison it is or if an antidote exists. Yoon hesitates, then says normal hunter antidotes won't work. Jin-hyuk suggests taking him to a hunter hospital, but Sang-ho warns that would reveal where they are. Their enemies would find them almost immediately. Thinking fast, Jin-hyuk suddenly asks Hyun if she has a car. She's confused, but he tells her to get ready now. They're going to his house. She asks if he has an antidote there, and he says no, but he may have another way to treat the poison. Hyun agrees at once, and hurries off ready to drive as fast as she can. Jin-hyuk stays with Sang-ho and keeps watch over him. As they get close to their destination, Jin-hyuk urges Sang-ho to stay awake just a little longer. Then Hyuk notices something and asks if he's seen the car behind them. Jin-hyuk looks back and realizes it's the same vehicle they saw earlier outside the house. Hyuk confirms it. They're definitely being followed. Jin-hyuk knows he can't lead them straight home now, so he changes the plan and tells Hyuk to listen carefully and take another route. When they reach a certain spot, Jin-hyuk gets ready to face Kang Jun. He tells Yoon to drive straight to his house while he stays behind. His coworker has already been warned and will let her in. The protagonist expected to find So Sung-ho, so he's caught off guard when Jin-hyuk blocks him instead. Jin-hyuk, meanwhile, watches carefully, wondering if the protagonist is the only one tracking them. Then Jin-hyuk realizes something is wrong. Yoon isn't driving to the house like he told her to. Before he can ask why, she yells for him to run no matter what, then reveals the worst part. The man chasing them is an S-class hunter. Jin-hyuk is stunned when he hears the name Kang Jun. His detection skill kicks in, confirming just how overwhelming that power is. MC's aura floods the area, making it obvious this enemy is on a whole different level. Jin-hyuk struggles just to stay on his feet. Jun asks if he's okay, but he can barely answer and knows he won't hold out much longer. He tells her to run now and promises he'll find a way to catch up. She doesn't want to leave him, but he keeps pushing until she finally gives in and drives off. But Kang Jun has no intention of letting his target escape. He moves to cut them off, but Jin-hyuk throws himself in the way again, clearly getting under the S-class hunter's skin. Kang Jun can't understand why this guy keeps getting in his way. Jin-hyuk fights only to stall for time. By now, Hyun is far enough away to be safe, and all she can do is hope Jin-hyuk survives and makes it back alive. Jin-hyuk understands just how bad this is. Annoyed, Kang Jun-tae asks why Jin-hyuk keeps getting in the way and tells him to move unless he wants to die. He says he has no time for pests. Jin-hyuk still doesn't budge. Does Jun-tae really think he'll run out of fear? Before he can answer, Jun-tae bursts forward. His blows are not only fast, they hit with brutal force. Jin-hyuk has to dodge everything, because one clean hit would kill him. Jun-tae mocks him, wanting to see how long he can keep this up. Then the attacks get even harder, and Jin-hyuk knows that if one lands clean, he's done. Thinking fast, he opens his inventory and throws on his mithril chainmail. Its effect kicks in at once, cutting both physical and magic damage in half. When the next blow connects, Jin-hyuk feels how close he came to dying. If he hadn't prepared that armor, that attack would have killed him. Jun-tae studies him, surprised that So Sung-ho had someone this capable working for him. Then he remembers something. Could this be the C-class hunter, said to have caught a strange new monster? The story rings a bell. Han Young-sok had talked about someone like that, someone close to So Sung-ho. Jin-Yuk quickly realizes he's been found out. Even if he gets away now, they can track him later. His home won't stay safe for long. Worse, he isn't even sure he can escape Jun-tae at all. Then Jun-tae suddenly offers him a deal. Forget So Sung-ho and work with him instead. The new Titan Guild could use someone like Jin-Yuk, but Jin-Yuk turns him down without wavering. We cut to Lucia, who's trying to heal the guildmaster until she finally hits her limit. She can't keep going right now, so she steps back and thinks it may be time to talk outside. The poison in Se Song-ho is still extremely dangerous. Lucia only managed to ease things enough for him to rest. His pain is gone for now, but not for long. Getting more worried, Yoon asks what they can do next, and whether there's any other cure. Lucia pauses, then remembers someone who might help. A certain short man comes to mind. If anyone can do it, it's probably him. But there's a catch. To enter the dungeon where the answer may be, they need Jin-Yuk, and even then, it won't be easy. Back in the fight, Jin-Yuk is barely hanging on. The attacks don't stop, giving him no time to recover. Every blow rattles him, and his strength is running out. He knows he's at his limit, and a potion would help, but Jin-Yukin's pressure won't give him a second to drink one. That leaves only one choice. Bet everything on a final strike. Even so, he refuses to quit. If this is where he falls, he'll go down swinging. Pulling together his last bit of strength, he goes for one final attack. But no matter what he does, his blows keep missing. Frustration rises, and Kang Jun-tae calls the whole fight boring. Then, a killing blow comes without warning. Jin Hyuk knows he has to dodge, but his body won't move, and he gets hit. Panic hits him as he desperately tries to force himself to react. His mind is screaming to move, but his body stays locked up. At the very last second, instinct takes over, and he barely survives. Yoon-tae gives him one more chance to join him and live. Jin Hyuk says no again, and Jun-tae decides there's only one thing left to do. The finishing blow is coming, and Jin Hyuk wonders if this is really the end. Right then, an arrow shoots through the air and cuts into the fight. Lucia is here. Let's back up for a second, and see how Lucia got here. She moves fast, following the route she memorized. Even though it's her first time taking this path, she doesn't hesitate. She just keeps pushing, hoping she's not too late. She quietly prays Jin Hyuk can hold on a little longer. At the same time, Jun-tae gets ready to finish him, but before that final hit lands, an arrow tears through the air. The sudden shot makes him jump back. He stares at the arrow, shocked by how much power it carries. Jin Hyuk, barely still standing, knows that arrow right away. Lucia made it just in time, and saves him. Her strength catches their enemy off guard. At first he looks down on her, thinking she won't be a problem. That thought disappears fast when she blocks his attack with ease. Stunned, Kang Jun-tae can't figure out how she's matching him. Lucia stays calm. This isn't the time to explain anything. She just needs to end it fast. With her bare hands, Lucia snaps his spear, leaving him stunned. He can't understand how he's getting pushed back this easily. For a moment he wonders if she's an S-class hunter from another country, because he would already know if someone this strong was local. Jin Hyuk, still recovering, is just as shocked by her power. Once she sees he can move, Lucia gives him a choice, and asks whether she should finish Jun-tae or let him go. Jin Hyuk tells her there's no need to get deeper into this. He says to end the fight there, but Kang Jun-tae still refuses to accept defeat. Even so, he knows pressing on would be too risky, so he agrees to stop for now, though he hides it behind pride. Lucia mocks him a little, but he stays cold and says he'll remember this day. Before leaving, he warns them that next time they meet, both Lucia and Jin Hyuk will die. Then he disappears. After the battle, Lucia helps Kang Jin Hyuk recover, and tells him his condition isn't as bad as it looked. To his surprise, his injuries are fully healed. Thankful, he praises both her healing and how strong she was in combat. Lucia basks in it, teasing him for finally seeing how amazing she is. Jin Hyuk jokes that she's basically overpowered and makes sure she knows that's a compliment. Then he asks about guild leader Se Song-ho. Lucia says he's resting at home, but without proper treatment, he's still in serious danger. They think the dwarf they met earlier might have the antidote, so they know they can't waste any time. With that, they get ready to head back at once. Lucia warns Jin Hyuk not to push himself too hard, because his wounds could open again if he's careless. Now that his identity is exposed, Kang Jin Hyuk knows trouble could come at any time. Still, saving Seo Sang-ho comes first. When they arrive, Uncle is annoyed. Jin Hyuk was supposed to bring the ore for purification, but instead he brought a poisoned man, which makes everything harder. Jin Hyuk apologizes, says things went wrong, and promises to make up for it later. Right now, all he cares about is saving Seo Sang-ho. But things get worse when they learn the poison is Bailiscow venom. They need an antidote, and the materials to make it aren't here. Jin Hyuk asks if Uncle has one. Uncle shoots that down, saying he's not some magic box with everything inside. Meanwhile, Seo Sang-ho looks around and asks Jin Hyuk about this place. Jin Hyuk admits it's a fair question, but doesn't explain much, only saying they can think of it as one of his abilities for now. He knows revealing this place is risky, but he chooses to trust the guild leader because the guild leader trusted him first. Uncle hands over some medicine and says it will only buy time. At best, they have half a day, and if they don't find the antidote by then, Seo Song-ho will die. Jin-hyuk asks about other options, but the answer isn't encouraging. A hunter hospital might have the antidote, but just like Seo Song-ho warned, their enemies would find them the moment they went there. Then Jin-hyuk remembers something. Later they return to Earth, and he talks with Lucia. They go over hidden places where an antidote might exist, but nothing is certain. They bought time, not a real answer. Then Jin-hyuk brings up one last option. If this fails, they're out of moves. He makes a call, and the person on the other end is surprised to hear from him so late, and asks what this is about. Jin-hyuk skips the small talk and asks if they have an antidote for basilisk venom. The answer is no, but he does know a shady doctor, who might. When asked why he needs it, Jin-hyuk only says it's urgent. The caller agrees to connect him and asks if he wants this handled quietly. Since Jin-hyuk is a VIP, he'll keep it discreet. Not long after, the doctor shows up. Jin-hyuk tells everyone the antidote is finally here, and the news brings huge relief, even tears. The doctor successfully clears the poison from Si-sang-ho's body. Still, he says full recovery will take at least 2 weeks before Si-sang-ho can move normally again. Until then, he needs complete rest. After that, Kang Jin-hyuk realizes those 2 weeks create a serious problem. Si-sang-ho won't be able to handle the Titan Guild chasing him, even with Lucia around. And after fighting him, Jin-hyuk finally sees his own weakness. He had underestimated an S-rank hunter and overestimated himself. Lucia notices and says he's carrying too many worries. Jin-hyuk admits that after facing an S-rank, he now understands how weak he really is. Lucia tells him he may be weak now, but he can still become much stronger. She offers him a dangerous way to gain that strength, and Jin-hyuk says he'll do whatever it takes. The next day, he's ready to head for the Dragon's Temple, packing 50 explosion scrolls, 300 mana potions, and 300 health potions, while making sure his armor and weapon are set. He also checks that he has a return stone, giving himself an escape route if things go wrong. Before leaving, he asks Lucia to watch over Si-sang-ho and the others while he's gone. Lucia warns him that the Dragon's Temple is incredibly dangerous. She reminds him not to get greedy or push himself too far, or he'll die. Kang Jin-hyuk takes it seriously and says he'll use the return stone if things get out of hand. As he's about to leave, Secretary Lee apologizes, blaming herself for the risk he's taking. Kang Jin-hyuk tells her not to be sorry. He wants revenge too. Then he tells Lucia she's the only one he can trust while he's away, and asks her to wait for him. No matter what, he's coming back stronger. When he reaches the Dragon's Temple, Lucia's warning comes back to him. Don't get greedy and leave once he's gained enough strength. But he has no plan to play it safe. His goal is simple. He won't leave until he's strong enough to beat an S-rank hunter. Jin-hyuk keeps moving forward, but after a long stretch with nothing in sight, he starts wondering if he's gone the wrong way. Then the area suddenly lights up, revealing strange suits of armor. At first they seem like plain decorations, but something feels wrong. A second later, he realizes they're enemies. Instead of panicking, he welcomes the challenge. Once the fight starts, he notices the armor looks dangerous, but its actual power isn't that great. Soon, he finds their weak point, their cores, so Jin-hyuk isn't worried. He already has the right weapon for this. He fires off a powerful burst of electricity, hitting all their cores at once. He can't help wondering how those metal monsters are taking the shock, and what electricity tastes like. Back at the Titan Guild's office, Han is furious. Kang Jin has turned the hunt for one drugged-up fool into a huge mess. Something that should have been easy is now complicated. He asks his assistant what happened to the executives who backed Si-sang-ho, and the report is clear. They're locked in their homes under heavy watch, with phones and internet cut off. Han coldly orders them to keep watching, making sure Si-sang-ho doesn't escape through them. Before they can say more, a loud crash interrupts them. The door slams open, and Kang Jun storms into the office. He demands to know why nobody warned him about the unexpected problem. Han doesn't get the attitude. He already told him about that low-level hunter. But the protagonist snaps that he's not talking about him. He means the archer woman. Han's assistant quickly steps in, telling MC to back away from the executive, but he doesn't care. With one brutal punch, he sends the assistant flying into the corner without even looking at him again. Han finally realizes he's talking about the woman traveling with Jin-hyuk off day. Carefully, he asks if Kang Jun lost to her. He treats it like an insult and denies it at once, saying he would have won if his spear hadn't broken. From that alone, Han can tell Lucia is strong enough to overpower even the protagonist Jun, and that humiliation clearly got under his skin. Not knowing what else to say, Han promises they'll prepare for her too, along with Jin-hyuk. Still, he reminds Kang Jun to finish Song-ho fast. They already know he's been poisoned, so even if he's alive, he's probably near death or too weak to fight. Once they find him, it's over. The only real problems left are Jin-hyuk and Lucia, but this time the guild plans to kill them both. Han puts his trust in MC Jun. Once those two are gone, nothing will stand in the way, and the Titan Guild leader's seat will be his. Meanwhile, in the Dragon Temple, Jin Yukok clears out the armored enemies and reaches the second room. There, he notices a throne, and someone is sitting on it. What shocks him most is the figure's karma level, 0. The old man on the throne seems pleased to see a new challenger after so long. Jin Yukok politely asks who he is, and makes it clear this is no ordinary man. That catches the old man's interest, and he asks if Jin Yuk thinks that because his karma is 0, which leaves Jin Yuk wondering how he even knows that. Instead of answering, the old man asks why he came, and guesses it's because of the cursed, hate-filled thing he's carrying. That stuns Jin Yuk. This guy talks like he already knows everything. When the old man steps closer, Jin Yuk holds out his hand, shows him the stone, and says he came to have it purified. The old man immediately sees what it is, something grown by devouring people, packed with grudges. Even so, he says it's no hard task. With a casual wave he casts a spell, and streams of energy pour out of the stone. In less than a minute it's purified, even its color changes, and the dark aura around it disappears. Jin Yuk is clearly stunned. Hanali thanks the old man, but the old man tells him to save that gratitude until his real reason for coming is done. Jin Yuk doesn't understand, and when he looks into the old man's eyes, it feels like he's been pulled somewhere else, as the old man says the trial has already begun. He warns Jin Yuk not to drop his guard, and to fight with everything he has, or he'll lose his life. Jin Yuk appears in a dark place and realizes this is the Dragon Temple's true trial. Then he feels someone coming. Footsteps echo closer. The same armored figure shows up again, but this one is clearly different. As the area glows around him, Jin Yuk wonders if he's been moved to another space. Curious, he questions the armored man. Is this really his opponent? Are more coming? Was the earlier fight just a warm-up before the real challenge? The armored figure ignores all of it, and to Jin Yuk's surprise, tells Kang to get ready. The trial has begun. Now Jin Yuk knows this one is different. Unlike the others, it can speak. But the armored man suddenly rushes at him, saying this is his only warning. Back in Jin Yuk's neighborhood, several men race across the rooftops at high speed in black hoods and masks. One says they searched the address from every angle, but found nothing there. Another is clearly nervous. If they don't find him, they're finished. Kang won't forgive failure, so he orders them to find that guy no matter what. If they have to, they'll destroy every house in the area until they uncover Jin Yuk's home. But before they can act, one of the hooded men suddenly drops to the ground, blood spreading everywhere. The other two barely understand what's happened before they lose their chance to run or call for help, and they get taken down too by Lucia. With the threat handled for now, she returns home. Secretary Li Yuncheng asks if everything's okay outside, since Lucia left so suddenly. Lucia calmly explains that the Titan Guild's tracking team came by. That instantly puts fear on her face, but Lucia tells her not to worry. She dealt with them quietly. After hearing their plan to destroy the whole neighborhood, just to find this place, Lucia realizes they're now convinced this is where both the Titan Guild Master and his secretary are hiding. She apologizes to Hyun if the enemy comes in full force because she won't be able to stop them alone. All they can do now is hope Jin Yuk returns stronger soon. He's the only one who can change this. Meanwhile, Jin Yuk struggles as the armored man charges in. He freezes for a split second, and the blade cuts across his throat. Terrified, Jin Yuk grabs his neck, sure he's been killed, but the next instant he's back in the temple, completely unharmed. He checks his neck in disbelief, then hears laughter. The same old man explains that the place where he died is like a virtual space, so death there isn't real. He doesn't need to worry. Jin Yuk turns toward the voice and sees a door closing, confirming it's the same old man. The old man tells him he's still very weak. The Dragon Temple exists to make him stronger, but it's also a trial, and he already warned him never to lower his guard. Real strength isn't just power, it also means endurance. He needs to grow and try again. But Jin Yuk has no patience for a lecture. If their hideout is found now, So Sang-ho and Haina will die, and if Kang Jun appears, he still can't beat him. He needs strength now, but the closed door keeps him separated from the old man, so he begs the old man to open it. He admits his mistake, swears he won't let his guard down again, and says none of this matters if he can't get stronger right away. The old man knows that if he rushes back in now, he'll just die again. Still, Jin Yuk refuses to back down. He says he'll only know by trying, and keeps pressing him. The old man can see just how desperate he is. Even after feeling death once, he still won't quit. Jin Yuk says if he feared death, he never would have started this. The old man is amused by that resolve, so he makes an exception and lets him take the trial again. A second later, Jin Yuk is sent back into the virtual arena. The armored warrior praises him for returning after dying once. Jin Yuk admits he slipped up before, but this time he won't go down so easily. The man laughs, then leaps up and brings down his huge weapon. This time, Jin Yuk catches it with his enchanted bat. Even so, the pressure is insane just to hold him off. The armored man can tell Jin Yuk is finally focused. As he strains against the attack, Jin Yuk tries to gather aura into his legs. He needs to knock the weapon away and make space. He pours aura into his legs, thinking one opening even for a second could change the fight. With everything he has, Jin Yuk shoves the armored warrior back. The backlash almost throws him off balance, but he stays on his feet. A head-on fight won't work. He has to hit, pull back, and wait for the right moment. Jin-hyuk rushes in and jumps high to strike. The armored man is impressed he can handle aura, but notices it's all in his lower body, leaving the rest open, so he knocks the attack aside. It's like he can read every move before it happens. The armored man admits Jin-hyuk has guts, but if this is all he can do, there's no reason to drag things out. He should just die. He attacks again, but this time Jin-hyuk blocks it, catching him off guard. Jin-hyuk tells him he's not going down that easily. He wasn't sure before, so he tested a guess and he was right. The man is reading his attacks by watching his aura. Hearing that, the armored warrior laughs and calls him talented, but says it still won't change the result. Jin-hyuk hates to admit it, but he knows that's true. If he keeps using aura the same way, the man will keep reading him, so he needs a new approach. He opens his inventory, drinks a mana potion, and decides to cover his whole body in aura so his moves can't be predicted. Before he can finish it, the armored man attacks again, but this time Jin-hyuk stays alert and dodges the blow. The man notices Jin-hyuk is now wrapped in aura from head to toe. He asks if that's from the drug earlier, and mocks him for borrowing power that isn't truly his. Jin-hyuk doesn't care where the power comes from if it helps him win. With the enchanted bat in hand, he moves fast, dodging, striking back, and meeting the heavy attacks flying at him from every side. Still, Jin-hyuk refuses to give up. The armored man starts to see him as a real threat, and Jin-hyuk says he's more than that. They fight hard for control. Each clash sends out sparks and shockwaves, pushing both of them to the edge. The armored man praises Jin-hyuk for lasting this long, but right then Jin-hyuk suddenly jumps. He warns it might sting a little, then attacks. Elsewhere, Hugh-minil and Lee Jun-chul drive past Jin-hyuk's neighborhood and spot Titan Guild members searching all over for Se Sang-ho. Hugh-minil says getting involved will only bring trouble. Lee Jun-chul tells him not to do anything rash and just watch for a second. He has an idea. Then he takes out his phone and calls Seo Sang-ho's secretary, Lee Haina, asking if Hunter Jin-hyuk has contacted her. She remembers he was the one who introduced Jin-hyuk to the doctor. Then Jin-hyuk asks about Sang-ho and she assures him Sang-ho is safe and being treated well. Keeping calm, he says he's near Jin-hyuk's house and can see Titan Guild members everywhere, which means the guildmaster is close by. If this goes on, by the time Sang-ho recovers, Titan Guild will be blocking the house. So Jun-chul suggests meeting in person to figure out what to do. Back at the Dragon Temple, the armored man is somehow completely fine even after that huge hit. He mocks Jin-hyuk for staring in shock, and tells him to bring out anything he still has left. Jin-hyuk can't believe even lightning failed, so he admits he has nothing else hidden, and says they should settle everything in one final clash. The man agrees and promises him a proper finishing blow. Then he lets out a powerful aura. Jin-hyuk grips his bat tight and notices divine energy coming off him, jokingly calling him a paladin. The armored man proudly says he's not one but something close. Then he asks Jin-hyuk if he's ready. Jin-hyuk stays calm and says he's been ready. As the man charges in, Jin-hyuk knows tricks won't work anymore. This has to be pure force. He gathers every bit of aura in his body and blocks the divine strike. He knows the moment he gets pushed back, it's over. The armored man realizes this is different. Jin-hyuk is compressing all his aura into a single point to raise its power, putting everything into one blow. But the man keeps pressing forward, making Jin-hyuk stumble as his aura starts to scatter. Even then, the armored warrior tells him that still won't be enough to win. The fight hits its peak as the armored man surges in and their weapons crash together. Jin-hyuk struggles against the crushing force bearing down on him. No matter how hard he resists, he gets driven back to the ground. He plants his bat against the ground to steady himself, his whole body shaking from exhaustion. He blocked the attack, but his aura is gone, and he can barely move. The armored man asks if this is really the end of his strength. Raising his weapon, he says all Jin-hyuk managed to do was break his iron sword, and a broken iron sword can be replaced with an aura blade. Jin looks completely spent, so how is he supposed to keep fighting? The man warns that if Jin-hyuk has nothing left, the challenge ends now. Breathing hard, Jin-hyuk says the man talks too much and tells him to just kill him already. He gave it everything, so he has no regrets. Even so, he says dying here won't really kill him, and he'll keep coming back until he gets stronger. Then the armored man reveals the real trial is already over, and says Jin-hyuk misunderstood it. No one ever said he had to beat the armored man. The man is the examiner and judge. The true test was whether Jin-hyuk could earn his approval. Hope flashes in Jin-hyuk's eyes. Maybe he passed. And he did. The man approves him, though he says there's still plenty to improve. In an instant, the armored warrior turns into the old man on the throne. It was him all along. He praises Jin-hyuk's talent, but warns him that being reckless isn't the same as being confident. Even so, he liked how Jin-hyuk gave everything until the end. Realizing who he is, Jin-hyuk starts to speak, but the old man cuts him off and motions for silence. Since Jin-hyuk wanted to know how to grow stronger, the old man explains that his aura comes from divine power, so the answer is simple. He must connect with the divine, and the old man places a hand on his head. He says he's taken a liking to Jin-hyuk, so he should use the gift he's about to receive well. Before Jin Hyuk can even process it, he's sent to a completely unfamiliar place. He panics when he sees a giant dragon, but it tells him not to be afraid. He was brought here to receive power from the being that acknowledged him. As the challenger who passed the trial, he will now be given the power of the divine. Streams of energy rush toward Jin Hyuk. The dragon tells him to accept it. This is the grave of a god that has chosen to favor him. Jin Hyuk is scared and confused, but one thing is clear, from now on divine power will stay with him. Lee Yun-chul arrives at Jin Hyuk's house. Lucia waits anxiously for Jin Hyuk. He's late, and she can't stop wondering if something went wrong. Then, just as her worries take over, she feels a strange change in the air. She turns and opens the gate. The dungeon gate is appearing. That means Jin Hyuk made it. She checks the gate, and is stunned by the powerful aura coming from inside. Then footsteps echo out, and Jin Hyuk steps through. Lucia freezes. This power is coming from him. She can hardly believe it, and just stares in shock. Jin Hyuk asks why she looks so stunned. She hesitates, but her head is full of questions about what happened in there. Did he really clear all the Dragon Temple trials and survive them? When Jin Hyuk still doesn't answer, she angrily pulls out her weapon and calls him a reckless idiot. Did he have any idea what he'd just done? What if it had gone wrong? She warned him not to get greedy and to back out in time, but before her attack lands, Jin Hyuk blocks it with divine energy and says he had no choice. If he wanted power, he had to do it. Lucia clenches her fists, knowing he never listens. He definitely got stronger, but she still tells him to be careful, because if something happens to him, she can't go home either. Jin Hyuk assures her that won't be a problem anymore, so Lucia says she'll leave this place to him now. Confused, Jin Hyuk asks if she's going back to the dungeon. Lucia says she needs rest too, and honestly, he looks strong enough to manage things here by himself. As she turns away, Jin Hyuk thanks her. Lucia brushes it off. She says she did it for herself as much as for him. If he died, the dungeon would be a mess. Then she reminds him nothing comes free. The boss room and its magic circle still need work. Since she'll be staying there for a while, she tells him to bring plenty of sweets as payment. Before going, she gives one last warning. Once she returns to the dungeon, the spell hiding this place will start to fade, and when it does, the Titan Guild will find it. He should make a plan before that happens. With that, she disappears back into the dungeon. Jin Hyuk heads into the lounge and greets the secretary, leaving Lee Yun-chul stunned to see him there. The secretary lights up the moment he walks in. Jin Hyuk asks if everything stayed under control while he was away. Hyana gives him the update, starting with Seo. That eases him a little, but he still has another question. He wants to know why Lee Yun-chul is here. Jin Hyuk says he couldn't reach him, so he came in person. Jin Hyuk can tell this guy never shows up for no reason, so something big must be coming. And right away, Jin Hyuk throws out a surprising offer. He wants to build a guild with Jin Hyuk. Before Jin Hyuk can answer, Lee Hyuk and Anisha cuts in. Wasn't he supposed to bring a way out of this? Jin Hyuk tells them to relax and hear him out first. He lays it out plainly. Even if Seo Song-ho recovers, he can't return to the Titan Guild. The fact that nobody came to save him proves it. Tien is rotten beyond repair, so instead of fixing it, they need something new. Jun-chul wants to build that with Lee Hyesen and put Kang Jin-hyuk at the center. Then he holds out his phone and asks them to look over what he prepared. He's already gathered the basics for a new guild: money, manpower, skilled recruits, and places they can use. Lee Hyesen is impressed by how ready he is, but even then, this still isn't enough to face Titan head-on. Can all of this really stand against the Titan Guild? And more than that, what about Kang Jin-tae? Jun-chul says he has an answer for that too, but it depends on one thing. Kang Jin-hyuk beat him. Jun-chul asks why he's choosing him instead of So Song-ho. Jun-chul says So Song-ho will need too long to recover, and by then, their chance will be gone. He heard Jin-hyuk fought the protagonist Jin-tae and lived. If that's true, then this plan can fix their whole situation. If that rumor is wrong, they can forget this talk ever happened. But if Jin-hyuk really can fight Kang Jin-tae, then the plan works. And if so, Jun-chul is ready to bet everything on him. Jin-hyuk smirks and says he wants to hear the plan first, then he'll decide. As Jun-chul starts explaining it, the Tyrant Guild leader, Jo Won-chul, is busy beating Titan members. He's demanding to know why they keep barging into his turf without fear. With the public already turning against Titan after the Al-Ran incident, he figured they would keep their heads down for a while. Instead, Titan has been pushing into Tyrant territory. So if they want a war, Won-chul is ready to tear every one of them apart. Back at Jin-hyuk's house, Jun-chul reveals the plan. Pull the Tyrant Guild into this, and use one giant force against another. Tianit is one of the few guilds big enough to match Titan, and with Jun-chul as an S-class leader, they can go toe-to-toe. But Lee Hyesen points out that Tianit is still a mess after the Al-Ran incident. Would they really jump into a war right now? Jun-chul says getting them to fight will be easier than she thinks. Lately, Titan has been taking more and more land, and most of it used to belong to Tyrant. Other guilds grabbed some too, sure, but Titan pushed too far. Give Tyrant one solid reason, and they'll attack right away. Lee Hyesen and Jin-hyuk trade looks, thinking about their ace. Jun-chul doesn't get it, so Jin-hyuk brings up the Al-Ran incident. The Tyrant Guild was the one that leaked Titan's dirty secrets. That makes everything click for Jun Chul. No wonder Titan moved like they already knew. This is more than enough reason. Once Tyrant hears it, they'll strike Titan at once. Then Jun Chul, Jin Hyuk and Lee Hysun can move as a third party and take down Titan's top figures, Han Young-suk and Kang Jun-tae. That's the plan. Jin Hyuk grins. He's in. And that means the new guild is happening. Using mythology as inspiration, he names it Pantheon, after the Temple of the Gods, who overthrew the Titans. Jun Chul and Lee Hysun both like it, since the meaning fits perfectly. Now there's no reason to wait. They need to move. Jun Chul tells Secretary Lee to leak the info to Tyrant, and while she's at it, find out if anyone in Titan might switch sides. He'll handle gathering supplies himself, but there is one thing he needs, Kang Jin Hyuk to do. Susenko can't act for now, and even if Titan's chase slows once the guilds clash, they still need a way to pull attention off them completely. Jin Hyuk says he may have an idea. At the same time, in Jin Hyuk's residential area, Titan Guild members have tracked down Lee Hyena and Jin Hyuk. They report that the two are heading toward Sector D. Meanwhile, Jung Dae-yoon watches everything from a rooftop. Jin Hyuk thanks him for buying them some time. Happy he could help, Dae-yoon asks about something Jin Hyuk mentioned earlier, a possible rebellion inside the Titan Guild. Jin Hyuk explains that Han Young-sok tried to push out Susenko, so that's why guild leader So is here. He asked Jin Hyuk for help, and Jin Hyuk agreed. That's also why Titan's men are hunting them so hard. Jin Hyuk adds that Kang Jun-tae nearly killed him. That shocks Dae-yoon, but Jin Hyuk calmly says he can handle him now. Then he gets to the real reason for the meeting. He asks Dae-yoon if he wants to join the new guild they're making. At Tyrant Guild Branch 3, Jo Won-chul gets word that Titan not only killed Alron, but also leaked the whole incident to the media. His assistant says Susenko's secretary passed along the information herself, claiming she doesn't care anymore, since he's leaving Titan and she just wants money. The report says Titan broke in that night to steal the artifact, and after Alron died, they covered themselves by leaking the story to the press. Jo Won-chul trembles with rage, fists clenched. He's not about to let Titan get away with this. He orders his assistant to call in everyone available immediately. Tyrant will strike first, and from this moment on, they are officially at war with Titan. At the Titan Guild office, a man rushes in and reports to Jun-tae and Han Young-suk that the Tyrant Guild has invaded their territory. Yoon-suk wonders if this is payback for losing ground, but the man says it's bigger than that. Jo Won-chul himself is leading the attack, and on top of that, he's formally declared war on Titan. Yoon-suk jolts up in shock and demands to know why he wasn't told sooner. He immediately asks where Won-chul is, and the man says their forces have already gone to stop him. At the same time, Won-chul is in a fury, crushing anyone who gets close. To everyone's shock, he even hurls a bus with his bare hands. That alone is enough to make the Titan men back off. They try to close in, but before they can do anything, he vanishes. A moment later, he appears far away, moving faster than they can believe. Titan keeps losing men. Every squad sent after him disappears, and soon they learn they're all dead, making Won-chul impossible to track. Back in the office, Young-suk starts panicking, but Jun-tae only smirks. He says he knew something was wrong. It had been too quiet, and there was no way Jo Won-chul would just sit there and take hits. That attitude makes Young-suk snap. Is this funny to him? At this rate they could both die. He says they should report it to the association and make them step in. The messenger nervously says the association already knows. So far they've only sent out a warning, which means they don't plan to interfere. Jun-tae isn't surprised. The association would never stop a clash like this. They'd rather watch two unruly giant guilds weaken each other. Hearing that, Young-suk orders him to try again and ask for intervention on the grounds that civilians could be hurt. The man apologizes and says that won't work either. In District 9's residential area, announcements begin about the battle between Titan and Tyrant. People living nearby are told to evacuate to safety. Neither guild cares about the civilians. They only want to fight. Realizing how bad it is, Jun-hyuk arrives at the Jun-hyuk reaches the area and spots a little girl crying beside her injured mother trapped in a car. An attack is about to hit them, but Jun-hyuk jumps in and saves them. He tells Lee Hai not to just move people out, but to make civilian protection the top order for every guild member. Soon, a report spreads about Pantheon's first mission: protect civilians no matter what. When word of this new guild reaches Young-suk, he's confused since he's never heard of them. Jun says it's probably some unknown mid-level guild trying to get famous off the chaos. Still, he says the real problem is the tyrants. Then Young-suk stops him, saying the people helping civilians seem tied to Seo Songo or Jin-hyuk. Jun brushes that off, but the name Pantheon keeps bothering Young-suk. He knows the Pantheon in Greek myth was linked to gods who overthrew the Titans, so the name feels like a direct shot at them. That finally clicks for Jun. Showing up now is way too suspicious. The Tyrant's war declaration, the sudden attack, the timing, it all fits too well. So they figure Seo Songho or Jin-hyuk has been supporting Tyrant from behind the scenes. Right then, a call comes in. Jo Won-chul is moving straight toward their headquarters. Young-suk's face turns grim. He passes the update to Jun. Now that it's come this far, they decide to end it here, and Yongsuk asks if Jun can kill Wonchul. Jun's eyes burn with rage as he says Wonchul just walked into his grave. While the war between Tyrant and Titan keeps raging, Tyrant's men notice Titan's fighters aren't that strong, they just have numbers. Titan then fights dirty, throwing fire spells, and the civilians panic. Junchul tells them his hunters will protect them, and urges them to evacuate this way. He says they'll be safe once they arrive, and if they're ever caught in a guild war again, his guild will help. Then he asks them to remember the guild that stands with the people, Pantheon. The civilians stare at him, confused that he's promoting the guild at a time like this. Just then, Young Il tells Junchul that an association officer has arrived. The officer confirms Junchul was helping evacuate civilians and thanks him. A huge disaster was avoided, and the officer says they'll handle things from here. He's shocked to see a guild that actually protects civilians, asks their name, and Junchul proudly introduces the newly formed Pantheon. Junchul knows the association showed up late and is now trying to save face with empty praise. Even so, Pantheon got what it wanted. Civilians and even the association now see them in a good light. Junchul and Hyung-al have finished their part. The rest is up to Guildmaster Kong Jin-hyuk. Later, Hyung-al, Junchul, and Lee-hyun meet Jin-hyuk. He explains that a war between two guilds this big will drag civilians into it. So Pantheon's first goal is clear: protect civilians and build a good image. Junchul says they're doing all they can, but the war itself still has to be stopped. Junchul tells him not to worry about that. He calls Dae-yun for Jo Wonchul's location, and just as expected, he's heading to Titan Guild. So Junchul moves out. Curious, the women ask why tracking Wonchul matters so much. Junchul explains that if that monster and Kang Jun-tae fight in the city, the damage will be insane, and one of them will die. His plan is to bring both of them down at once. Haina is stunned, her mind spinning. She knows he's gotten stronger, but fighting two S-rank hunters alone sounds crazy. Junchul heads out and reminds his guild to stay focused on protecting civilians. Haina realizes all they can do now is trust him, handle their part, and pray he comes back safe. At Titan's base, Wonchul looks over the building. The guards spot him and rush to contact the control room. They report that Jo Wonchul is at the main gate and beg for immediate backup. Before they can do more, Wonchul slams them both to the ground. He says he has no interest in weaklings and will spare them if they call their guildmaster right now. One guard quickly relays the message to the control room, but Wonchul beats him down too. Hearing this, Yunchul realizes Wonchul really made it all the way here. Jun never expected him to walk straight into his own death, and says he'll hand Yunchul the tyrant guildmaster's head. The war between these major guilds is now making news across the whole country. To stop civilian deaths, police and the Hunter Association lock down the area. Traffic is blocked and the battle zones are sealed off. The association also opens shelters and orders anyone in marked areas to evacuate at once. At the same time, Wonchul keeps crushing Titan's weaker fighters, declaring that Titan has already fallen and mocking these so-called elite guards of the main base. The guards want to fall back since they can't stop an S-rank, but one of them orders everyone to hold the line until the new guildmaster arrives. Minutes later, they're all down. Wonchul wonders if Seo Songho has changed. His men are dropping everywhere, yet he still hasn't shown himself. He shouts for them to call Seo Sangho out, but instead, Jun charges in and demands to know who gave him permission to rampage here. Wonchul freezes for a second and asks why he's here. Jun reveals that he's Titan's new guildmaster now, then immediately shoves him back. Wonchul is thrown off by that, so he asks where Sangho is. Jun only smirks and says he can ask Sangho himself in the afterlife. Wonchul coldly answers that Jun is the one dying today. That sets Jun off. He laughs, calls it bluffing, and both of them charge at once. When Yunchul steps outside, he's horrified to see his guild members lying all over the ground. He wants clerics called in, but they're already sent to other battle zones, so help can't come right now. Every branch is under attack, and even the last soldiers at the main base were deployed. Yunchul starts putting it together. Their troops were scattered across branches, and then Jo Wonchul attacked alone. The war was just a distraction. His real plan was to storm the main base by himself and finish everything. Normally a plan that reckless would never work, but S-rank power makes the impossible possible. In the end, this whole war will come down to Jun and Wonchul, the clash of two S-ranks. Inside the dungeon's boss room, Lucia is still trying to figure things out. She's been studying this for days, believing that if she can decode the magic circle, she can return to her own dimension. Then a sad thought hits her. If she leaves, no more snacks. Her mind soon shifts to Jin-hyuk, who's been gone a while. She worries, then tells herself he's probably fine. After all, Jin-hyuk may already be stronger than those so-called S-rank hunters. Back at the fight, Wonchul unleashes a huge blast of blue energy. Jun meets it head-on with his own power, and the two struggle to overpower each other. Then Jun leaps in and swings his weapon to split Wonchul's head in two, but a magic shield is already up to protect him. To break it, Jun slams his weapon down, setting off a huge explosion. From a distance, Jun-yu closes in on the battlefield. When he arrives, he's sickened to see them fighting with no care for the city or its people. The city is being wrecked not by monsters or terrorists, but by selfish hunters who forgot their duty. People say an S rank is like a natural disaster, and now Junhyuk truly sees what that means. Before, he wouldn't have dared step into a fight like this. Now, with divine power on his side, he knows he can beat both of them. Meanwhile, Jun and Wonchul keep trading blows. As their weapons crash together, they hear a voice tell them to stay right there, nice and close. Before either can react, Junhyuk strikes them both and knocks them back. Wonchul stares from the side, trying to figure out who this newcomer is, while Junhyuk greets Jun with a mocking tone. Jun remembers him as the guy who got beaten and ran away before. Still, Wonchul keeps watching Junhyuk and the strange energy coming off him. It's nothing like anything he's felt before, and he can't tell if Junhyuk is A rank or S rank. He starts wondering if hunters like this even exist in Korea. Then Junhyuk looks at Wonchul and recognizes him, the same trash who sacrificed countless women to Ao Raun. Instead of attacking right away, Junhyuk calmly asks if they can really call themselves hunters. He points at the destruction around them and says they've turned the city into ruins. Regular people got dragged into this and ended up hurt. After seeing all of that, he asks if they feel even a little guilt. Juntae just smirks. Guilt? Why would he feel that? To him, civilians are no different from bugs under his feet. If a few die, he doesn't care. Then he mocks Junhoam as another naive puppy, and says Se Sang-ho wasn't the only fake saint around. Hearing that, Junhoam says they're worse than beasts. Even animals show some pity. He thanks them for making this simple. Now he can kill them without hesitation. Junhoam grips his bat tighter. Energy starts pouring off it. He tells Juntae that his answer made everything clear. Juntae laughs it off, acting like he misheard. In his mind, both Junhyuk and Wonchul are dead anyway. He tells Jo Wonchul to wait. He wants to deal with this loudmouth first. Wonchul plays it cool and says this should be fun to watch, but inside, he knows this could work out perfectly. If the two of them wear each other down, he wins either way. Junhyuk then looks his way and says he can join in too. He doesn't mind taking both at once. That smug attitude sets Juntae off, and he rushes Junhyuk at full speed. His weapon is aimed straight at him. Junhyuk doesn't even budge. He just raises his bat. The strike gets blocked with ease. Sweat runs down Juntae's face. Before, this guy couldn't even stop one hit. Junhyuk notices the shock on his face and asks if he's really that surprised. He hasn't even started yet. Then, with a quick flick of his bat filled with divine energy, he knocks Juntae back. Wonchul's eyes go wide. He never expected someone to shove Juntae back that hard. Using that opening, Junhyuk steps in to strike again, but Juntae barely avoids it by tilting his head. Even so, the hit leaves a scratch, and that makes Juntae even angrier as he gathers power to counter. He doesn't know what Junhyuk did, but one thing is obvious, he's far stronger now. Juntae admits sparing him before was a mistake. Junhyuk laughs, and Juntae's regret shows all over his face. Still, he refuses to admit it, and arrogantly says Junhyuk will die by his hand either way. Jin tells him it won't happen. The day he barely escaped, he swore he'd come back stronger and kill the man who humiliated him, and look down on him. Juntae knows this is bad. He never thought Junhyuk would grow this much. His mind races. How did he get this strong? Was it some kind of trick? Then he suddenly suspects Junhyuk drank Ao Raun's elixir and presses him about it. Before Jin can answer, Wonchul demands to know why Ao Raun's elixir is even here, so Juntae tells him Junhyuk killed Ao Raun and took the elixir. Wonchul is stunned and asks Junhyuk if that's really true. Junhyuk only smirks and pulls out a bottle, holding it up as he asks if this is the elixir they mean. The second Wonchul sees it, his face turns dark with rage and he charges. Junhyuk slips past the attack, which only makes Wonchul madder, so he throws another heavy punch. It slams into the ground instead, because Junhyuk vanishes from in front of him in an instant. He dodges again, escaping even when Wonchul tries to trap him with his body. Junhyuk knows that last hit would have been dangerous if it landed, so he's glad he avoided it. Then he notices a drone overhead. The drone is broadcasting the fight live, a stream covering the clash between two S-rank hunters. By now the whole area looks like a war zone, and as the report continues, they announce that a new hunter has entered the battle. They mean Junhyuk. They still don't know who he is, but he's holding his own against two S-ranks. Elsewhere, Secretary Haina lets out a relieved breath. The media reached the scene safely, and the setup is going exactly as planned. Juntae can't believe what he's seeing. Junhyuk is dodging the Tyrant Guildmaster's attacks with ease. Worse, his counters are even stronger, and they keep landing. Juntae starts wondering again what made him this strong. Meanwhile, Wonchul is getting beaten by a teenager. After being slammed to the ground, he gets back up and asks if Junhyuk is really holding back. That only makes him more furious, because he feels looked down on. He yells at Juntae to stay out of it. He'll be the one to bring Junhyuk down. Pouring in all his strength, he charges again and says things will be different from now on. But that's just wishful thinking. He keeps getting crushed and still can't land a hit. Junhyuk drives him back with his bare fists and says it looks the same to him. Without giving him time to breathe, he follows up with a swing from his bat, and Wonchul barely blocks it. At the same time, Juntae comes in from behind for a sneak attack, but Jin-Yuk is already ahead of him. He blocks it with his bat without even turning around. The impact is so strong that Jun-Tae's spear shatters. That's when Jun-Tae starts to panic as Jin-Yuk comes at him. He's knocked down by the shockwave alone. Seeing no other choice, Won-Chul suggests they team up, even though they were trying to kill each other a minute ago. He proposes an alliance until Jin-Yuk is beaten. Jun-Tae still doesn't trust him, and warns that if he betrays him, he'll kill him next. Won-Chul snaps at him to get in position. They might have a chance if they combine their power. Meanwhile, the reporter says the identities of the two S-rank fighters have now been confirmed, but the third hunter is still unknown, and there's still no word from the Titan Guild master. Right as the reporter says that, Seo Sang-ho slowly opens his eyes. The first thing he does after waking up is get dressed. Even now, he cares about his guild image more than his own health. Once he's ready, he looks for Haitian and asks where she is. At that same time, Haitiana gets a call while heading to the battlefield. She's shocked to hear he finally woke up, and quickly catches him up on what's happening. Seiko Sang-ho asks where she is, and she says she's on her way to the war zone, explaining that Jin-Yuk made a new guild, and she joined it. That's a lot for the guildmaster to take in, so he decides to contact Jin-Yuk himself and ask what's going on. But Haine tells him that's impossible. Jin-Yuk is currently fighting two S-rank hunters. Hearing that, Seo Sang-ho stands up at once. No matter how strong the kid is, he doesn't believe he can handle two S-ranks. He asks for the location, and says he's going himself. Haine hesitates, worried about his condition, but he says this all started because of him. As guildmaster, he can't just sit and watch while the fight keeps going. In the end, she agrees and sends him the location. She's still worried about his health, but she knows he may be the only one who can stop this. Hyenta tells herself this isn't the time to hesitate. She has to do what needs to be done. Meanwhile, Jun-Tae is doing everything he can just to land one hit on Jin-Yuk, but he's completely outmatched. Jin-Yuk reads every move and blocks them with no effort. As the fight heats up, the shockwaves spread even farther. While Jin-Yuk seems focused on Jun-Tae, the other S-rank rushes in from behind, trying to finish him. But Jin-Yuk sees it coming and leaps up fast, making the two nearly hit each other. Noticing his partner is exhausted, Won-Chul tells him to drink a mana potion while he keeps the kid busy. Jun-Tae hates having to work with him, but he knows he's right, so he pulls out a potion and starts drinking. He thinks they might win if they pour all their mana into one huge attack. But while he recovers, the other S-rank is already struggling to handle Jin-Yuk alone. Jin-Yuk grabs his fist, looks at him coldly, and asks why he's not trying harder to kill him and take the elixir. He even taunts him to put in more effort. Before the S-rank can react, Jin-Yuk twists his wrist and breaks it on the spot, then smashes him with the bat. Jin-Yuk watches in shock as mighty Won-Chul gets thrown around like a rag doll. Once he's down, Jin-Yuk walks over and asks if he's still alive. Then he says he can't let him live because of the crimes he's committed. He lured in innocent women and kidnapped them to sacrifice to Alraun. Anyone who refused him was locked up, and the guild members who obeyed were drowned in drugs. What's happening now is just the result of everything he's done. As he lies there taking his last breaths, Won-Chul can't believe he's dying in such a pathetic way. Jin-Yuk lifts his bat and asks if he has any final words. The S-rank looks up in despair and asks if he's really going to die over something this small. Then he starts begging. He even offers to make Jin-Yuk the guildmaster if he's spared. But Jin-Yuk shuts that down right away. This was never a deal, just a chance for a last request. Jin-Yuk says he decided this the moment he saw those trapped people waiting to die. Even then, Won-Chul still can't understand why kidnapping a few people is enough to get him killed. For Jin-Yuk, that's more than enough reason, so he drives the bat into him and ends it. Won-Chul screams as the bat pierces his chest. In his final moments, he can only think that this can't be how he dies, but that doesn't change anything. His consciousness fades, and he goes still. Once he dies, Jin-Yuk coldly tells him to apologize to everyone he killed in the afterlife. Nearby, Jun-Tae watches in shock, wondering if he should attack while Jin-Yuk's attention is elsewhere. Still, the fear on his face says it all. He knows he can't win. All he wants now is to run, but the chance is already gone. Jin-Yuk catches him trying to flee and hurls his bat at him, asking where he thinks he's going. The weapon shoots forward like a bullet, and the S-rank barely knocks it away. He acts tough and claims he isn't running. He's just choosing to let Jin-Yuk live. He thinks he's fast enough to escape the MC, but he's dead wrong. Jin-Yuk catches him at once and tells him not to hold back. At the same time, Seo Sang-ho and Hyena arrive near the ruined area. She points out that the battle is just past it. She guides him there and says the fight is right beyond this point. Before he goes, Tiana asks him to rethink this one last time, but Seo Sang-ho has already decided. He says he can't leave everything to Jin-Yuk. Tiana tells him he should recover more, but he says he has to finish what he started. In the end, she gives in and only asks him not to push himself too far. As Seo Sang-ho gets ready to move, he looks up and quietly asks Jin-Yuk to hold on. Elsewhere, Young-Sok is watching the whole battle from a rooftop. He thinks this got way more messy than planned. It was supposed to be a duel between two S-ranks, but he never expected someone even stronger to step in. Now that the fight has turned, he knows Jang-Tae is beyond saving. His goal was always to build the greatest guild, and he saw Sok Song-ho as the one thing in his way. That's why he poisoned him. With that obstacle gone, he thought nothing could stop him. Looking at Jin-yuk, he decides to back off for now and escape, planning to twist public opinion later. Before So Sang-ho went to help the MC, Hyena told him one more key detail. While watching through the drones, she spotted Young-sok on top of the Titan building. Back in the present, the guildmaster appears right behind the traitor, and Young-sok freezes in fear. Before he can react, So Sang-ho shouts his name and grabs him by the collar, demanding to know why he would betray his own guild. Young-sok stares back and asks if he really doesn't know. He says the guild no longer needs him. That lands hard, and the guildmaster asks what he means. Young-sok says So Sang-ho was holding the guild back, and that a leader like him is useless. So Sang-ho sees right through it and calls it what it is: greed dressed up as an excuse. Young-sok argues that he saved the guild from ruin, but So Sang-ho fires back that the real damage came from his betrayal and the disaster he set up. With nothing left to say, the traitor summons a knife and tries to stab the guildmaster. Even not fully healed, So Sang-ho dodges easily and says Young-sok kept disappointing him until the very end. That brief moment lets the traitor run. As he flees, he convinces himself his only sin was trying to create the greatest guild. He blames Jin-yuk for ruining everything, and leaps off the building. So Sang-ho refuses to let him escape, so he follows and summons his weapon. While still in the air, he swings his axe into Young-sok's head and tells him to answer for the disaster he caused. Young-sok lets out a horrible scream as his head is split open, then crashes to the ground. Standing over the body, So Sang-ho says he's finally done his duty. Then he suddenly remembers Jin-yuk and realizes he wasted too much time chasing the traitor. He immediately heads back to help him. Meanwhile, our boy is handling the other S rank with no trouble at all. After a blow to the chest, Jin-tae can barely breathe. Jin-yuk points his bat at him and asks if this is the end for him. Jin-tae knows he's reached his limit and has no way out. With no options left, he begs for mercy, offering Jin-yuk anything he wants, even his place in the guild. That makes the MC bring up their last fight. Even after being stabbed with a spear, he never begged. He kept fighting to the very end. But the S rank keeps pleading anyway, and before killing him, Jin-yuk says that if he really wanted to live, he should have fought for it till the end. Before another word comes out, he smashes his head completely off his body. With the S rank dead, the MC stands there quietly, realizing he stopped both S rank hunters with his own power. Then he hears So Sang-ho calling to him and asking if he's hurt. Jin-yuk is stunned to see him alive and asks when he woke up. So Sang-ho tells him not to worry. He woke up a while ago and recovered enough. Then he asks what happened here, and Jin-yuk says it's a long story. He explains that he got a lucky chance to grow stronger, and that's how he beat both S ranks. Even so, the guildmaster can't believe he became this strong in such a short time. Seeing the confusion, Jin-yuk says he'll explain later, but right now they need to deal with the damage across the city. Sang-ho tells him not to worry. He and Hyana will handle that. What matters now is Hyana's message. The association wants to meet Jin-yuk. The scene shifts to a training room at the Hunters Association HQ, where Jin-yuk stands confused. He accepted their invitation, but he has no idea why they're putting him through this. A voice tells him it's a test. Destroy the drones in front of him, while avoiding their attacks. Before he can make sense of it, the drones open fire, so he decides to deal with them first. They come at him from every side, making it harder to dodge, but after fighting 2 S ranks, this barely even feels like a warm-up for him. Smiling confidently, he starts smashing the drones apart with his bat. He clears them out fast, and the voice announces a new record. Jin-yuk looks at the screen and says he's getting annoyed since nobody told him about this test. The woman on the other side explains that this is standard procedure to measure his hunter rank. After his recent battle, he defeated 2 S ranks by himself, so the association can't keep calling him a C rank. Even after hearing that, he still thinks the whole thing is pointless. Jin-yuk loses patience and tells them to open the door so he can leave. The woman tries to calm him down, but he wants no part of the test anymore. As he heads for the door, she urgently warns him that he can't leave before the test is over. Then, to everyone's shock, he smashes through the door with his bat and walks out, saying this was a complete waste of time. But the association still isn't finished with him, and a group of hunters stops him a few steps later. He warns them to move, unless they want to die. They all saw what he can do, so nobody thinks he's bluffing. The hunters glance at their leader for orders. Since the team leader still doesn't budge, Jin-yuk decides they're ready to die. Just before he attacks, a voice behind him tells him to stop. Before he even turns around, he sees the hunters bowing and calling the newcomer chairman. That's when he realizes who it is. No Take-soo, the chairman of the Hunters Association. Jin-yuk greets him and asks why someone like him would call in a C-rank hunter. Noticing his mood, the chairman apologizes and says someone wanted to meet him. That person is none other than South Korea's strongest hunter, Chaeyeon Sung-ho. Even our boy is surprised to see the nation's #1 hunter right in front of him. As the man walks over, Jin-yuk wonders why someone like that would want to meet him. Chaeyeon reaches out for a handshake, and it feels like a total fan moment. Jin-hyuk asks why he wanted to see him, and the man says he watched footage of his recent fight against the two S-rank hunters. Chaeyeon praises his performance and says he mainly wanted to meet him. Jin-hyuk thanks him, but he can tell that's not the whole story. Soon enough, the top hunter admits he wants to ask a favor. At the same time, Seo Sangho and Hyuna talk over tea at his place. She tells him the remains of the Tyrant Guild and Titan Guild have been merged into the Pantheon Guild with the association's approval. Hyuna apologizes, saying she did everything she could to save the guild. Sangho tells her disbanding it was the right move. He clearly has some regrets and thinks things might not have gotten this bad if he had listened to the other members more. Then he says he's retiring from hunting. Hyuna slides over a contract and tells him retiring would be a waste. After reading it, he sees it's an application for the Pantheon Guild. She says they need someone like him, and their guildmaster feels the same way. That makes him ask if she's joined them too. With a wink, Hyuna confirms she works for the Pantheon Guild now. Meanwhile, Jin-hyuk and Chaeyeon face each other, ready to duel. Jin-hyuk finds the whole thing strange. First he was shoved into a test room, and now the strongest hunter in Korea wants to fight him. The chairman and the girl watch on a screen. She's stunned Chaeyeon came to headquarters himself, since he almost never shows up in public. The chairman says he met him earlier, and after seeing Jin-hyuk's battle with the two hunters, Xiaobei said he had finally found someone worth fighting beside or maybe against. When Jin-hyuk asks why they're fighting, the top hunter says he isn't totally sure either. Still, Jin-hyuk never backs down from a challenge, so he's in. The girl starts to worry and asks the chairman if they're really letting this happen. He just laughs and says it's fine, they're only sparring. Back in the arena, Chaeyeon draws his sword, and both of them tell the other not to hold back. Jin-hyuk grins to himself, thinking he doesn't care about rank. What he really wants is payback for all the hell he went through because of him. Meanwhile, Hyuna is shocked when the association calls to say the top-ranked hunter is about to spar with Jin-hyuk. One look at her face tells Sangho something is wrong, and he asks what's going on. She lowers the phone and says Chaeyeon Sangho is about to fight Jin-hyuk. That worries him, and he asks why, but Hyuna has no clue either. Thinking Jin-hyuk could be in danger, the two hurry to the Hunters Association. Back at the fight, both hunters wait calmly for the other to slip up. The girl asks the chairman who he thinks will win. Right then, the two rush in and clash weapons. The chairman says the top hunter should take it, but in the fight itself, they look evenly matched. When both are knocked back, Jin-hyuk realizes Xiaobei is on a whole different level from the other S ranks. He decides testing the waters is pointless. Instead, he goes all out from the start and unleashes a huge aura shockwave at the top hunter. Xiaobei stands before it, wondering if Jin-hyuk is finally going all in. That alone is enough to make him get serious too, so he slices straight through the aura and rushes in with a counterattack. He wants to see Jin-hyuk's real power and keeps pushing him harder. Watching this, the girl grows more nervous as the fight heats up. Even Jin-hyuk feels the massive power coming off the top hunter. He swings his bat to force him back, getting fired up by fighting someone this strong. This could be his chance to find his own limit, but then Xiaobei suddenly says they can't keep going. Jin-hyuk has no idea what he means, and then the top hunter declares that he lost. That only confuses Jin-hyuk more, so he asks what he's talking about. Even the chairman is stunned. It's the first time he's ever seen Xiaobei admit defeat. He asks why he's ending it so suddenly. Xiaobei lifts his sword and says if the fight goes on, it won't last much longer. As soon as he says that, the blade shatters into pieces. With that, the chairman ends the duel and officially promotes Jin-hyuk to S-rank. The news spreads almost right away, and footage of his fight against the two S-rank hunters starts airing everywhere. Reports also say he beat the country's top hunter in a duel, and they bring Chaeyeon in for an interview. Asked about the loss, he admits it's true and says Jin-hyuk will surely become the face of Korea's hunter world. Meanwhile, Jin-hyuk is a little let down. The duel ended so fast, he wanted it to go longer. As he leaves the association, Chaeyeon calls out, congratulates him on becoming an S-class hunter, and Jin-hyuk thanks him for the interview, but asks why he did it. The top hunter says he wanted comrades he could fight beside, and this was his way of making the association see Jin-hyuk's strength. As Xiaobei starts to leave, Jin-hyuk stops him and says next time, he better not hold back. He already knows the sword used in their duel was a fake. As they part ways, Jin-hyuk thinks Xiaobei definitely went easy on him and even used a cheap blade. That makes him wonder if Xiaobei did all this to help the association recognize him. Either way, it showed him he still isn't strong enough. Later, he heads to the parking lot, where Hyena's car screeches to a stop. She jumps out in a panic and rushes over to check on him. Sangho gets out too, just as worried. Hyena says she couldn't believe the news about the spar. Sangho is angry the association brushed it off as sparring, when they put him against the strongest hunter in the country. He even talks about filing a complaint, but Jin-hyuk stays calm and says he's not mad. If anything, he learned a lot. Fighting Xiaobei brought back the crushing pressure he once felt at the Dragon Temple. He tells them they should head back and talk at the guild. That night, he finally relaxes for the first time in a while. He realizes how rare peace has become for him. After non-stop battles, he can finally breathe. Then he gets a call from June. the guild manager. Jun asks if he's okay after the fight with Chabe, and warns him not to push too hard. Power matters, but staying alive matters too. He's the guild master. Jin-Yuk thanks him for worrying, and says he'll be careful. Then he asks how the guild is doing. Jun shares good news. They've officially taken over the assets of the Titan and Tyrant guilds, their former biggest rivals. They've also opened new hunting zones that are already busy. Those areas are helping the guild grow stronger and hold off other guilds. He tells Jin-Yuk to come visit soon, and Jin-Yuk agrees. After the call, he sits there quietly, worn out. He wants to rest, but he has too much to handle. So instead of taking it easy, he decides to enter a dungeon and catch up with Cheyenne. He stops by the dwarf craftsman's workshop for help. The dwarf isn't happy to see him, and complains that Jin-Yuk only shows up when he needs something. Jin-Yuk apologizes and asks for an upgrade to his weapon. The dwarf grumbles that he always vanishes whenever he's sent to do something, which makes him unreliable. Jin-Yuk says he had his reasons, and promises to make it right, but when he mentions the spar with Cheyenne, the dwarf snaps and grabs the weapon. He demands to know if Jin-Yuk lost while using the bat he made, clearly taking it personally. Even so, he agrees to help, saying Jin-Yuk's lucky. He's been wanting to test a new method anyway. When Jin-Yuk tries to thank him, the dwarf cuts him off. He's not doing this out of kindness. He just wants to prove his skill. As Jin-Yuk leaves, he starts thinking about Lucia since he hasn't seen her in a while. Then he realizes she might know the answer to something that's been bothering him. Feeling hopeful, he goes deeper into the dungeon to find her. But on the way, he gets the feeling he's forgetting something important, even though he can't remember what. When he finally finds Lucia, she's furious. She almost punches him and demands to know why he came empty-handed. Ignoring that, Jin-Yuk says he was looking for her, and asks if she's really stayed in the dungeon this whole time. Lucia says yes, and explains she's been working on a magic circle, her only hope of getting back to her world. She's made some progress, which catches his attention, so he asks if she'll be able to leave soon. Lucia lets out a sigh and says it isn't that easy. She's tested her dimensional magic a few times, and every step seems right. The spell feels like it works, but nothing happens. She's sure it should work, yet she still can't understand why it doesn't. While she says this, a strange portal begins opening inside Jin-Yuk's fridge. The next morning, Jin-Yuk goes to a nearby supermarket and buys snacks for Lucia so she won't complain next time. As he's leaving, the cashier stops him and asks if he's Guildmaster Kang Jin-Yuk. Confused, he says yes, and the girl lights up. She says she's a huge fan and asks for a picture. Then Jin-Yuk notices other people taking photos too. Not wanting things to get worse, he apologizes and quickly runs out of the store. On his way back to the cave, he realizes he's gotten way more famous than he thought. The dwarf finally brings out the upgraded weapon and boasts that it's leagues better than the old one. The moment Jin-Yuk grabs the bat, he feels it pulling in his mana. That makes him wonder if something's wrong with it. The dwarf takes that badly and smacks him across the face. Then he reminds Jin-Yuk about the Alrone ore he purified before and says he used it in the upgrade. Monster ore usually keeps the traits of the creature it came from. For Alrone ore, that trait should have been life absorption, but after purification, it changed to absorbing mana instead. So if the bat is draining him, that means it's working just right. Jin-Yuk still worries it might empty him out, but the dwarf says it only takes a set amount. A moment later, the bat stops drawing mana, meaning it's full. The dwarf says Jin-Yuk can release that stored mana whenever he wants. To try it out, Jin-Yuk points the bat at a statue and swings. That sends out a strong wave of mana. Even the dwarf looks impressed that he pulled it off on the first try. Jin-Yuk thanks him for the upgrade, but the old man doesn't care about thanks. He wants booze. While they keep talking, the dwarf asks where he's headed, and Jin-Yuk says he's going to see Lucia. Just hearing her name makes it obvious the dwarf can't stand her, so Jin-Yuk asks why they never get along. The old man turns serious and says it's a long story. They only put up with each other because they have to. He explains that dwarves and elves have been enemies for as long as he can remember, and even says the elves sold their own people to the dragons. That shocks Jin-Yuk. Now he finally understands how deep that hatred goes. Later, when he meets Lucia, she yells at him like always and demands to know where he's been. He asks why she called him to the temple when she's usually in the boss room. Instead of answering, she tells him to look around. The entrance temple is gone. Jin-Yuk glances around, then realizes she's right. Lucia thinks it vanished before he cleared the dragon's trial, and during her recent research, she found a dimensional teleportation circle. It's even more advanced than the one the mage used in the boss room. Lucia asks if he gets what that means. Jin-Yuk catches on fast and says that if they study it, he might be able to return to his original world. But there's still a problem. She can't activate the circle by herself, even if they finish it, so he needs to learn magic from her and help power it up. Jin-Yuk asks again, just to make sure she's really saying he has to study magic under her. She says yes. The circle needs a huge amount of mana, and hers alone isn't enough. Even with his help, she still isn't sure it'll work. Jin-Yuk starts thinking of ways to feed the circle a massive amount of mana, then remembers his bat can store it. He tells her to use that instead. She hesitates at first, but changes her mind when he shows the mana leaking from the bat. He explains that the dwarf upgraded it to store mana, and even if they don't know its limit, it could still help activate the circle. But when Lucia tries to touch the bat, she gets hit with a huge shock. Jinhyuk is confused too, until he remembers the dwarf added a binding effect. That means nobody but him can use it. So the bat is useless for this, and their only choice is to teach him magic. Lucia declares that from now on, he's her student. His first lesson starts at his apartment, and she even gives him homework while eating his snacks. It turns out to be way harder than he expected, and he has to memorize a huge amount of magical theory. On top of that, he needs to learn how to control mana, then use all of it to activate the circle. After days of study, he finally starts to understand the basics of magic. Right when he feels proud, Lucia shuts that down by saying this was only the beginning. The real training starts now. She goes over more material with him, and shows her notes on the magic circle from the boss's room. According to her, the circle failed because the mage changed the original design so he could handle all the mana alone, even though just activating it takes an enormous amount. So the teleport itself worked, but the dungeon ended up inside his room. After hearing that, Jinhyuk asks why they're even studying that circle if it failed. Lucia says that failed or not, comparing it with the one in the Dragon Temple could show them what went wrong. That way they can build one that actually works. From then on, the two keep researching the perfect magic circle. As time passes, Jinhyuk gets much better at magic, and eventually he can pour mana into the circle himself. He charges the bat to its limit and starts feeding all that mana into the circle. Lucia helps and tells him she'll signal when it's enough. As they both pour in mana, the circle lights up and begins to glow. That means it's responding. Jinhyuk just has to keep going until it activates. But then something goes wrong. The bat suddenly starts leaking aura instead. He tries to stop it, but can't control it. Even Lucia is thrown off and asks why he's putting aura into the circle. Jinhyuk says he has no idea either, and both of them struggle to keep the circle running. A moment later, the ground starts shaking, and the floor under the circle gives way completely. Luckily, they jump back in time and avoid getting dragged in. But that also means their one shot at going back is gone. Lucia screams at him, blaming him for destroying the circle. Meanwhile, the portal in his fridge starts glowing even brighter. Later, they sit in his apartment while Lucia snacks. Jinhyuk apologizes and says he never expected the bat to start pouring aura into the circle. She still snaps at him, saying he doesn't even know the difference between mana and aura. Hit by that, he explains that since he always uses the bat in combat, he may have changed the mana into aura without noticing. By then she's calmed down a little, and admits she should have checked more carefully before they started. Still, it means they've lost their chance to go back, and that weighs heavily on Jinhyuk. He promises he'll find a way to fix it, and asks if she needs anything. Lucia immediately yells for the sweetest, tastiest thing he has. Jinhyuk rushes to the fridge and asks if she wants cake. But the second he opens it, a freezing blast spills out. That's definitely not normal for a fridge, so he calls Lucia over. When she gets there, they both see a whole new world beyond the door. She smiles, realizing the magic circle didn't really fail. The snowy world in front of them is the result of that circle, and from the mana she feels, Lucia thinks this is the dimension she came from. She still doesn't know why the portal opened inside the fridge, but suggests they go in and investigate. Jinhyuk agrees, though he says he has to handle a few things first. He quickly calls Jun, his guild's co-founder, and asks him to come over. He also calls Hyena to join them. Once they arrive, Jinhyuk explains that he'll be leaving for a while to train. After fighting Jonyun, he realized he still isn't strong enough. Jun asks if he's found a way to grow stronger, and Jinhyuk says he's not sure yet, but maybe. Hyena sends him a report, and says the guild is doing fine for now, but if he's gone too long, things could get hard to manage. Before Jinhyuk can answer, Jun stands up and tells him not to worry. He says he'll take care of everything in the meantime. With the guild's influence already this strong, Jinhyuk can leave and come back even stronger. Later, Jun calls another guild member, and tells him the guildmaster will be away for a while, so he'll need to take on more responsibility. The man worries, and asks if it's really okay for Jinhyuk to leave right now. Jun says it's fine. Once their guildmaster returns stronger, their influence will grow even more, and they'll become the top guild in the country. Meanwhile, Lucia waits for Jinhyuk to finish changing. He comes out in a thick winter coat and apologizes, saying he had more to pack than expected. Then he hands Lucia a special bow and some arrows, and says the dwarf told him to give them to her. She checks the weapon calmly at first, and says a few arrows aren't a big deal. Then her face changes when she notices the arrowheads are top quality. Jinhyuk gets excited, and says he thought they were ordinary arrows, since the dwarf handed them over so casually. He says the old man really takes care of her. Lucia still won't admit it, but says she may have to repay him for this someday. After that, the two finally step through, and Jinhyuk can tell right away this is another dimension. They think about where to begin, then find a strange dungeon nearby. Jinhyuk lights up at once, and says something is definitely hidden in there. Lucia agrees, and they head inside. The dungeon is much larger and deeper than they expected, and the moment they enter, Lucia senses monsters rushing toward them. She stops Jinhyuk and warns him to get ready. It's starting. The creatures appear a second later, and they're yetis. The monsters leap at them hard, and she asks if he can handle it. Jin-Yuk just grins, and says he's fine. He pulls out his bat, and boasts he could beat them with his eyes shut. Lucia smirks and says he talks way too big. Still, they cut through the monsters easily. Jin-Yuk up front, while Lucia covers him from behind. As the fight goes on, she starts to notice how amazing those arrows really are. Jin-Yuk gets fired up too, so he goes for one last finishing hit. At that same moment, the dragon god learns that the apostle crossed into another dimension. Sitting in his seat, he listens to the report, and says he'll meet the apostle soon. The dragon still can't understand why a human got chosen over a noble dragonkin. The dragon god answers that it was because of the man's fate. He was born to bring ruin to the world. Jin-Yuk clashes hard with the creatures, then jumps up, ready to finish it fast. Without pausing, he brings his bat down like a bolt of lightning, crushing the monster's skull in one hit. Panting, he opens his inventory and checks the monster's name, Yeti. That catches him off guard, because he doesn't remember ever seeing one before. Lucia walks over, and the second she hears Yeti, her face changes. She explains that Yetis live in mountain packs, and if that really was one, they need to leave the cave now. Jin-Yuk doesn't get the rush and asks why they need to run. Lucia warns that once one Yeti dies, the whole pack comes for revenge, and when they do, they're brutal. Before he can say more, a blizzard tears through the tunnel, and loud howls ring out. He asks why she didn't say this sooner, and she admits she only remembered just now. With no time to argue, she tells him to run. As they take off, the icy ground starts cracking under them. Even then, he looks back and wonders if they really need to flee. To him, the Yetis don't look that strong. But Lucia explains the real danger isn't just the monsters. The cave itself is fragile, and fighting here could bring the whole thing down on them. Then Jin-Yuk suddenly stops. Lucia panics and asks why he'd stop here of all places. He calmly says he has something that could help. Pulling out a flash grenade, he plans to lock the monsters in place. But before he can throw it, the Yetis suddenly back off and retreat deeper into the cave. Both Jin-Yuk and Lucia are stunned. The same creatures that were chasing them now look scared. Lucia stares into the cave and says the Yetis might be afraid of something even worse, deeper ahead. She thinks their instincts are telling them not to go farther. Jin-Yuk is stunned by that idea. Something in there is scary enough to drive off a whole Yeti pack. Lucia confirms she feels a weird, powerful mana, unlike anything before, dark, twisted, and disturbing. She says the only way to know more is to keep going. They move on until the tunnel opens into a huge hidden area. In the center stands a snow-covered structure, and Lucia says that's where the dark mana is coming from. Jin-Yuk decides they need a closer look, but Lucia stays on edge. She warns that the aura around the place feels deeply wrong. Even Lucia, who never feared battle, feels a chill in her chest, like something inside is watching them. Somewhere else, in a dark space, the dragon god sits alone and says he's finally found what he was searching for. The last messenger has arrived, and now all that's left is to wait. Meanwhile, the two head toward the temple. The cold bites hard, and the deeper they go, the more dangerous the place feels. Then they spot a man standing still in the distance. Jin-Yuk instantly feels something is wrong, and Lucia warns that dark energy is pouring off him. Jin-Yuk wonders if he's even human and wants to talk first, but Lucia quickly shuts that down. She's never felt mana like this before. Then the man speaks in a rough voice. He says he didn't expect anyone to come here, and asks if they were sent by him. Jin-Yuk says they only came because they sensed bad mana, then asks who he is. The man suddenly snaps, shouting that no intruder can leave after seeing this place. The air grows heavy, and Lucia quickly tells Jin-Yuk to get back. She suddenly realizes who he is, and reveals that he's a dragon. At once the space around them shifts, and the man turns into a massive red dragon. The dragon declares that they entered sacred ground, and now must pay the price. Lucia gets into position and says she's fought dragons before. Jin-Yuk is stunned, but he forces himself to get ready too. Then everything stops. The wind dies, the fire goes out, and even Lucia and the dragon freeze in place. Jin-Yuk is completely confused. He sees that Lucia can't move either. Then a deep voice says time has been stopped. A man appears in the air in a black cloak, floating like he's tearing through space itself. Jin-Yuk asks who he is. The stranger says his name is Ordo, and he's the one who created the dragon Tian. He also says he's the god of this world. Jin-Yuk is shocked and isn't sure whether to believe him. Ordo says belief doesn't matter. It's still true. Then he explains that he has watched humans for a very long time. At first he liked the way they lived, but later they began fighting each other and destroying everything around them. He didn't want humanity to wipe itself out, so he became a god to protect it. He made monsters to give people a common enemy, and turned humans into hunters so they could fight back. For a while it worked, and people stood together, but in the end humans started using that power against each other too. Ordo says Jin-Yuk has done the same. He adds that Jin-Yuk was never supposed to become this strong yet, and to be his apostle he should have faced many more trials. But that plan broke down because someone from another dimension interfered. A powerful mage moved the dungeon into his room, letting him grow stronger far earlier than expected. Ordo says he tried to destroy the dungeon when Jin Hyuk first entered it, but the dragon god inside stopped him, so he backed off. Because of the dungeon, he couldn't track Jin Hyuk until recently, when the dragon god's presence disappeared. Only now could he meet him directly. He then reveals that Jin Hyuk had been marked as his apostle long ago. His plan was to make him a mighty protector of humanity, someone who could bring peace and stand above the world. So Ordo offers him that place, calling it his true role. But there's a threat too. If Jin Hyuk refuses, he dies for seeing this place. Jin Hyuk thinks it over, then calmly refuses. He admits he once wanted that kind of fate and power, but he won't follow Ordo. He says Ordo knew how much he suffered and never helped, so asking him to become an apostle now just feels like control. Jin Hyuk makes it clear he'd rather die fighting than live as someone's puppet. Ordo laughs and calls him foolish for missing the bigger picture. Then he changes tactics, rises into the air, and says if Jin Hyuk won't join him by choice, he'll force another answer. He introduces a creature named Tiamat, made after capturing an ancient dragon from another world. It's his greatest creation, and he claims neither hunters nor monsters can stop it. He plans to use it to wipe everything out and build a new world with only people who love peace. Jin Hyuk, he says, will be the first sacrifice to that new creature. Even then, Jin Hyuk doesn't back down. He grits his teeth and tells Ordo to do it. Then he rushes straight at the dragon-like monster, even if it looks suicidal. Ordo is impressed by his nerve, but says it won't matter. Jin Hyuk will only be left behind. Meanwhile, far underground, a dwarf finishes a gleaming new set of armor. Talking to himself, he says it took longer than expected, because the old set was too damaged. He thinks of Jin Hyuk and jokes that the guy better bring him some good booze as thanks. He remembers how weak Jin Hyuk was when they first met, and how he slowly grew into one of the strongest people on the continent, probably with some help from that noisy elf too. He wonders what they'll bring back this time, then laughs and says, maybe even a dragon. Back in the fight, Ordo snaps his fingers, and the giant creature wakes up. Its eyes glow as its huge body starts moving. Lucia comes to and realizes what's happening. She yells for Jin Hyuk to be careful. The dragon unleashes a massive blast of fire at him. Jin Hyuk tries to dodge, but it's too fast, and the dragon swallows him whole. Lucia freezes in shock and screams. Ordo smiles coldly and mocks Jin Hyuk for that big speech, only to fall so fast. But then a growl comes from inside the dragon. From inside Tiamat's mouth, Jin Hyuk growls that he's still alive and forces its jaws apart with pure strength. The dragon roars in pain. Lucia lets out a breath and asks if he's okay. Jin Hyuk says he is, then adds that he won't let Ordo destroy the world. No matter what happens, he'll stop him. Ordo only laughs, amused, and says he wants to see how long Jin Hyuk can keep this up. In the end, he says, all Jin Hyuk will feel is despair. At the same time, Hyena gets a call from the guild's co-founder. He tells her the association has sent out a mandatory summons. Confused, she asks why. He doesn't know the full reason, only that dungeons are opening all over the city, even in their area, so the association wants their help. Hyena says she'll alert the other guild members right away. After the call, Sang-ho asks what's happening, and she tells him a huge number of gates have opened in Region 9. That area happens to be near Jin Hyuk's house. Back in the fight, Jin Hyuk is still trapped in Tiamat's mouth, and Lucia fears he'll burn alive if he can't get out fast. He tries to force the jaws open, but the dragon is too strong. Then the elf fires an arrow straight into its head. Tiamat screams and opens its mouth just enough, and Jin Hyuk slips free. Even so, the direct hit barely seems to matter. As he drops to the ground, the dragon dives at him, ready to finish the job. Jin Hyuk springs back up, annoyed that it won't even give him a second to breathe. Tiantra crashes down and puts all its weight into crushing him. At the same time, Lucia tries to fire another arrow, but the dragon spots her first. Its tail lashes out and sends her flying. Seeing Lucia dropped in one hit, Jin Hyuk finally understands just how powerful this dragon really is. With her out of the fight, Tiantra trams back to him, pressing harder and harder. Jin Hyuk realizes he has no choice now. He has to use everything. Ordo looks almost disappointed, sure this is the end. He tells Tiantra to kill him, but then something feels wrong. Even with all its strength, the dragon still can't crush Jin Hyuk. Tianmo is stunned that a human can resist it at all, while Jin Hyuk pushes back with everything he has and draws on the power he gained from the dragon's temple. He releases it all in one scream, forcing the dragon to recoil. It's hard to believe someone like him can hold that much power. Even Ordo is shaken and can't accept what he's seeing, the power of the dragon god. Elsewhere, the dragon god sits on his throne and says it's time to move, because his apostle has finally awakened his true power. Rising from the throne, he declares that today he'll settle their old grudge. Back in that other dimension, Ordo feels the shift in energy and knows the dragon god is coming. Jin Hyuk feels it too, shocked by how overwhelming the dragon god's power is. Then he notices a dragon mark on his wrist. Ordo sees the symbol too, and wonders if the dragon god really chose him. Knowing he has to end this before the dragon god arrives, he orders Tiamat to kill Jin Hyuk at once. Tiamat obeys and blasts a huge wave of fire at him, but the flames that terrified him a moment ago don't scare him now. He's reached a point where beating the dragon feels possible, then a voice suddenly tells him to stop. For a second, it feels like time itself freezes. Jin-hyuk thinks Ordo did it, and yells at him, asking what else he wants to say. Ordo looks just as confused and says he didn't stop time. Then he hears the dragon god asking why he's been so hard to find. His eyes go wide. Now he knows the dragon god has arrived. Ordo never expected him to show up this fast. Jin-hyuk looks up, sees the elder in the air, and asks what he's doing there. The dragon god turns to Ordo and demands to know how he dared kidnap a dragon he loved like his own child. Ordo had taken that dragon and twisted it into the monster called Tiamat. The dragon god asks why he did it when he knew it was wrong. Ordo starts defending himself, saying he had to do it for his world, and that a god should understand that. The dragon god doesn't buy it. He says turning his stolen child into a monster to destroy a world was never necessary. Ordo did it for himself, and now he's trying to kill his apostle just because he doesn't like him. That sets Ordo off. He snaps back that he did it all for peace in his world, and this was just a small price to pay. After hearing that, the dragon god asks Jin-hyuk if any of it sounds reasonable. Jin-hyuk launches himself at Ordo, calling it complete nonsense. Ordo asks if he even understands his position, since he's interrupting a talk between gods. He snaps his fingers to stop time, but nothing happens. Stunned, he wonders why his power isn't working on Jin-hyuk. The dragon god tells him he's facing his proxy, someone who can use a dragon's power. In other words, a human with strength equal to a god. Now it's time for Ordo to be beaten by the human he looked down on. Jin-hyuk rushes in and swings his bat. Ordo blocks the first hit, but Jin-hyuk's power overwhelms him almost instantly. Jin-hyuk shouts that they don't need a god who wants to destroy their world, and slams Ordo into the ground. Ordo crashes down in a huge blast, smoke swallowing the whole area. When Jin-hyuk opens his eyes, he's somewhere else, a strange space-like plane. Ordo stands before him and tells him not to worry. Jin-hyuk asks what he's trying to do, and Ordo says he changed dimensions because he wanted to talk. He admits he lost, and says Jin-hyuk's blow changed how he sees everything. It made him realize that being a god doesn't mean he understands everything, so he's giving up his old plan and choosing a new path to put Jin-hyuk in charge of the world instead. As his body starts to fade, Ordo says he'll watch over things from now on and prove himself wrong. Jin-hyuk isn't sure he can carry that kind of duty, but Ordo has already decided. He names him the new manager of the world, and Jin-hyuk returns to the other dimension. The dragon god asks if they had a good talk, then says Ordo gave up everything and chose to trust humans again. He even returned the dragon and said he'd watch over the new world. Before leaving, the dragon god tells Jin-hyuk it's now his job to bring peace to this world. He says he'll be cheering for him and hopes he becomes a manager worthy of both gods' respect. Jin-hyuk stands there wondering if he really has become this world's manager. Then he hears Lucia calling out to him. He runs to her and asks if she's okay. She says she nearly died, but the dragon god healed her. Now that everything is over, Jin-hyuk asks her to come home with him. But Lucia says this is her original world, so she can't leave. That stings, and he asks if that means they won't see each other again. With that, they say goodbye and go their separate ways. Looking down on his world from above, Jin-hyuk remembers when a dungeon suddenly appeared in his room. He never imagined a bottom-tier hunter like him would become the world's manager, and he still doesn't know what Ordo saw in him. But one thing is clear, he has to lead humanity the right way so they don't lose their path. He'll do that by working with others to build a better world, both as a human and as this new world's manager.